The Roman root of Greece. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 176, Education Reform. According to Laris News, the government intends to invest 12 million drachmas in the construction of several new universities, which is a very clever conspiracy. $12 million for the construction of 3 new universities may not be enough, so Larry's words can be understood in this way, that is, the government's investment in education is only used for the construction of these universities. Undoubtedly, the government does this by picking peaches directly, while watering and fertilizing, and taking care of the peach trees. All these hard work are done by the foundation. The foundation is still responsible for primary and secondary education. Higher education is the terminal of the education system and the concentrated manifestation of educational achievements. Universal primary education can open up people's intelligence, improve people's quality, and improve their literacy rate. However, these benefits are not intuitive and cannot be intuitively felt, but higher education is different. The number of college students trained, and college graduates become social elites such as lawyers and scientists. These achievements of higher education are very intuitive. Therefore, the government can show a great sense of achievement to the public by spending less money on the government's finances. This approach is very thief. The education foundation and the government compete for influence in the field of education, which is essentially a contradiction between the kingship and the government. Therefore, although Prime Minister Alexandros has a close relationship with Constantine himself, he himself knows as for the royal family's actions in the field of education, the government will not sit idly by and let the control of the field of education fall. Constantine's mind was spinning, and these thoughts came to his mind one by one. No matter what the original intention of the government's investment in education is, it is indeed a good thing for the development of education in Greece. At the very least, after the government's investment is completed, there are several more universities in Greece, which can cultivate more talents every year. The government is willing to increase investment in the field of education, which is naturally a good thing. But the higher education in Greece is not urgently needed in its realization stage, Ikeus said happily when he heard the government's investment. Instead, it is technical colleges. Greece is currently in short supply of technical talents. It is not as cost-effective to build a group of technical schools. The level of a technical school is equivalent to that of a high school in the education system. However, if a high school student cannot enter a university, there is not much advantage in employment. The technical school is different. The study time is short. After all, there is no need to go to 4 years of university, which can save 4 years of time and money cost. Learn professional and practical skills in technical schools. Graduates of these technical schools are very popular with factory owners. The rapid development of Greek technical colleges is a proof as for higher education. Considering the total population and economic structure of Greece, there are simply not so many high-end jobs for college students. Moreover, once the number of college graduates expands rapidly, resulting in serious unemployment of graduates, it will cause serious social problems. Moreover, it will lead to a waste of talents. High-level talents will be succumb to low-end jobs, and they will engage in low-end jobs that high school students or even people with lower education levels can be competent for. Historically, after the independence of Bulgaria, the number of college students increased rapidly. But the society could not provide them with sufficient jobs. As a result, these large numbers of unemployed college graduates later became the main force of the revolution and the source of strength for the Bulgarian GCD. What President Ikeus said is very reasonable. The development of higher education cannot be out of touch with social reality, and the number of college students is not the better. Constantine advised Laris. Laris frowned, thinking about the suggestion of this development technical school. In his heart he also understood in his heart that the reason why the government ignored waste and hurriedly expanded higher education also had the intention of reducing the influence of the University of Athens as the only comprehensive university in Greece at present. The educational foundation accounts for 70% of the funds of the University of Athens. The Educational Foundation and the University of Athens have developed almost simultaneously. If the government's plan to build 3 new universities can be completed, then the situation of the University of Athens being the dominant player in the Greek higher education sector can be effectively curbed over time. However, it is indeed not advisable to blindly expand the scale of higher education. After all, it is impossible to waste a lot of social resources just to compete for educational influence. In this case, then build a comprehensive University of Tirana, and then use the rest of the money for technical schools. In the future, the teachers of these technical schools will develop, and the technical schools can be promoted to real universities according to the needs of the society. Laris said this is the government and education foundations each taking a step back after everyone in the conference room communicated with each other. Everyone had no objection, so this suggestion was recognized by everyone. The current education system in our country is basically imitating the civic education in Germany, said Principal Ikias, since the government will vigorously develop higher education in the future, then the reform of the personnel system of our Greek universities must also change. There are many teachers in the University of Athens recruited from Europe, and these foreign talents are currently the mainstay of Greek higher education. Most of these people are young scholars. They are willing to come to Greece to teach, more because of the generous salaries we give. Once European universities have the opportunity, they are more willing to return, Ikias said helplessly. Laris said inexplicably, since we offer higher salaries www.uxias.com, why do they still tend to go back? It's unreasonable. In order to ensure academic freedom, German universities generally adopt the system of professors. These professors are few in number and are tenured. They have a high status in the university and a high social status. As for our University of Athens, it has always been in a period of rapid development, and in terms of system construction, it is a bit urgent for quick success. Speaking here, President Ikias looked at the Constantine couple as the president of the foundation. Sophie was born in the German royal family. The modern university operating system originated in Germany. Naturally, she understands the principle of professors governing the school. It's just that the establishment of the University of Athens is still short-lived, and the Education Foundation is the biggest sponsor of the University of Athens. Sometimes it is inevitable to appear bossy, which makes foreign teachers not used to it, and feels that outside forces can interfere with the operation of the school. It will. Moreover, Greece is such a comprehensive university. Whenever there are technical problems in development, the University of Athens is naturally thought of, just like when the oil fields in Albania appeared before. Constantine ordered the University of Athens to mobilize teachers and set up a petroleum research group to study petroleum-related chemical technologies. In this case, in the subsequent construction of higher education, we must also ensure the academic freedom of Greek universities, learn from the advanced systems of European universities, and gradually adopt the system of professors governing schools to ensure academic freedom. Sophie concluded. Please remember this book's first domain name. Mobile version reading website, Chapter 177, Ottoman Revolution. In April 1907, in the Palace of the Constitution Square, we welcomed two dignified and worried visitors, Prime Minister Alexandros and Foreign Minister Venizelos. Venizelos successfully led the Croat People's Uprising in 1896. After the war, he officially entered the political arena and was appointed by King George as Greece's foreign minister. Since King George was away on a state visit to Russia, Constantine received the two in the conference room. His Royal Highness, according to the news from our consulate in Thessaloniki and the ambassador in Constantinople, there is a revolution in the Ottomans, Venizelos said with a serious face. As a neighboring country, the Ottomans have undergone great domestic changes, and Greece will be affected both economically and politically. What is the specific situation? Constantine said with a serious face. According to the consular response of Thessaloniki Kanika, it is probably due to the continuous chaos caused by the three Balkan countries, Serbia, Bulgaria and the armed forces supported by us in Greece, fighting for Macedonia in recent years. MSL supports this revolution, said Prime Minister Alexandros. Since the armed forces supported by Greece, Serbia, and Bulgaria have entered Macedonia unscrupulously, although the goals of the three countries are different, the basic purpose of each country is to expand its influence among Orthodox Christians and to find a legal basis for Macedonia. However, although the Ottoman Empire is still in decline, Macedonia is after all the territory of the Ottoman Empire. And the Ottoman Empire has maintained its rule here for nearly 500 years. During the reign of the Ottoman Empire, Christians were discriminated against in all aspects as conquered people. In terms of taxation alone, the tax that Christians had to pay was generally 1.5 to 2 times of MSL. The laws and religious precepts of the Ottoman Empire stipulated that Christians were allowed to convert to ISL, but MSL was not allowed to convert to other religions during this long 500 years. Many original Orthodox believers naturally converted to become MSLs in order to reduce taxes. In addition to conversion, some MSL in Macedonia migrated from Asia Minor and settled in Macedonia as the Ottoman Empire's national strength continued to decline. Its ability to control Macedonia was declining day by day. The chaos caused by the competition between the three countries in Macedonia naturally made the local MSL quite dissatisfied. The armed forces of the three countries ignored the local MSL, while the Ottoman Sultan government was weak and powerless, and the social order was out of control, all of which made the Macedonian MSL clearly realize that the Ottomans were terminally ill and must rely on reforms to change the gloomy social status quo. Some young progressive Ottoman officers who received European-style education, open-mindedness and broad knowledge finally took action. Currently, a group of Ottoman revolutionary troops have entered Thessaloniki, and they are marching towards Constantinople under the slogan of freedom, equality, fraternity. Venizelos said the current Sultan of the Ottoman Empire, Hamid II, is not a foolish monarch, but his political skills are seasoned and ruthless, but his luck is too bad, and he takes over an empire whose life is about to end shortly after becoming a sultan. The Ottoman army was defeated by the Russian army in the Russo-Turkish War in 1878, even after the Ottoman Empire was defeated by Greece again in 1897. With the support of the army, Hamid II was still able to control the political situation of the Ottoman Empire and generally maintained the Ottoman situation. It was reported from Vienna that the Austro-Hungarian Empire seemed to intend to take the opportunity of the Ottoman Empire to fall into civil strife and planned to formally annex the entrusted Bosnia and Herzegovina. Venizelos continued, however, there seems to be controversy in Austria-Hungary about this. Hungary opposes the annexation of Bosnia and Herzegovina, because Bosnia and Herzegovina is a settlement for the Slavs. After the annexation of Bosnia and Herzegovina, the number of Slavs will increase sharply, threatening the status of the Magyars. Also, King Ferdinand of Bulgaria has announced in Sofia that Bulgaria is officially independent, called the Kingdom of Bulgaria, and has given himself the title of Tsar. Bulgaria was previously an Ottoman vassal state, and the Ottoman Empire still held nominal suzerainty over Bulgaria, despite Bulgaria's de facto independence. And now, Bulgaria and the Ottomans have officially become a state relationship, and there is no more connection. Constantine sneered when he heard that Ferdinand claimed to be the Tsar, feeling that Bulgaria was overkill at the end of the 19th century. The title of the monarch seemed to be less sophisticated, as if any cat or dog could be called the emperor. Strictly speaking, in Europe, only the successor of the Roman Empire can be called an emperor, whether in the East or the West. The emperor is supreme because of this. Russia claims to be the successor of the Eastern Roman Empire, and the monarch of Russia is the Tsar. Now a small Bulgarian monarch dares to call himself Tsar, His Royal Highness. Now that the Ottoman Empire is in civil strife, are we Greece following the example of the Austro-Hungarian Empire and continuing to expand the northern border? Prime Minister Alexandros said, looking at Constantine, who was in deep thought. In the last war, the Greek army was willing to take a risk and conquered Thessaloniki, but gave up in the negotiation and returned it to the Ottomans. Naturally, the Greek people were not reconciled, and now the Ottomans are overwhelmed by themselves, and the army with a disorganized military heart cannot stop the Greek army from advancing in Macedonia. It is a good opportunity to win Thessaloniki again. Hearing Alexandros' suggestion, Venizelos, who is familiar with diplomatic work, hurriedly said, His Royal Highness, Prime Minister, don't act rashly. Once Greece does this, it will become a target for all countries to attack, whether it is the annexation of Bosnia and Herzegovina by the Austro-Hungarian Empire or the independence of Bulgaria. www.uxiaspit.com. In fact, their goals have already been achieved, and now it is nothing more than a nominal pass. The powers are still inclined to maintain the current situation in Europe, and this attitude will not change because of the Ottoman Revolution. And, taking a step back, even if the major powers do not interfere, the three Balkan countries are currently coveting Macedonia. Once Greece takes military action, Serbia and Bulgaria will definitely not sit by and watch Greece expand, and the Balkans will immediately fall into chaos because of the seizure of Macedonia. Alexandros is skilled in internal affairs, has extensive diplomatic skills, and is not sensitive to the international situation. On the other hand, Venizelos is the exact opposite of him, with outstanding diplomatic ability and poor in internal affairs. Constantine thought to himself after analyzing the views of the two. After Russia went through the Russo-Japanese War, the famous European road rollers were inseparable from the Asian dwarfs, and they were still in a weak position during this war, social contradictions in Russia intensified, and domestic revolutions erupted. In the end, they had to pinch their noses and sign a contract with the Japanese. It is precisely because the Russo-Japanese War exposed many problems in Russia that the current Russian Prime Minister Stolypin, with the support of the Tsar, is undergoing reforms and flawless expansion. Otherwise, when the Ottomans fall into civil strife, the Russians will not stop anyway. Please remember this book's first domain name. Mobile version reading website, Chapter 178, The Changing Situation in Europe. On July 6, Lundhert, the Greek ambassador to Constantinople, received a note from Athens and returned to Athens to report his duties. After learning the news, Constantine, eager to understand the situation of the Ottoman Empire, immediately summoned Prime Minister Alexandros, Minister of Foreign Affairs Venizelos, and Ambassador Lundhert to the Palace of the Constitution Square without waiting for corrections. After his journey discussion after the greeting, Lundhert naturally understood the reason why the Crown Prince hurriedly summoned him to report the information in the Ottoman country to everyone. Although after the revolutionary army entered Constantinople, there were still armed forces loyal to Sultan Hamid I who rebelled and revolted again to support Hamid I and oppose the revolution. Tired of it, the vast majority of people are pro-revolutionary and they want change. The Ottoman Revolutionary Organization in Macedonia, the United Progress Association, organized the Macedonian Revolutionary Army, which has entered Constantinople and suppressed the armed forces opposed to the revolution under the banner of Hamid I. The United and Progressive Association in Ottoman. The political power of the empire cannot be underestimated. Although the Germans did not express their attitude, like other major powers, they were in a wait-and-see state with regard to the civil strife in the Ottoman Empire. But there are various signs that they have a positive attitude towards the Ottoman Revolution. Lundhert reported to everyone, the most effective new army in the Ottoman Empire at present is mainly commanded by officers who are trained by the Germans. These people all support the Association for Unity and Progress. If there is no German action, this would not be justified. The German embassy is currently the hottest power center in Constantinople. It has a huge influence in the Ottomans, and high-ranking Ottoman officials frequently enter and leave the German embassy. It is not surprising that the Germans supported the Ottoman Empire among the major powers in Europe. If there is any country that is really happy to see the Ottoman Empire recover and reverse its decline, it is probably only Germany, Britain, and France, although they were on the side of the Ottoman Empire in the battle between the Ottomans and Russia, mainly from their own interests, did not want to see Russia expand into the Mediterranean, because it would greatly weaken the British and French in the Far East, India and Southeast Asia, and Mediterranean interests. They wanted the Ottoman Empire to be a firewall, firmly blocking Russia's tentacles into the Mediterranean on the issue of Russia's entry into the Mediterranean. As a Mediterranean country, Italy's position is similar to that of Britain and France is for Austria-Hungary and Russia, as opponents that have repeatedly fought with the Ottoman Empire in history. The weaker the Ottoman Empire, the greater their benefits. Only Germany is different. Germany does not have a border with the Ottomans, and the strength of the Ottomans has risen sharply, which is beneficial to Germany. A powerful Ottoman can divert Russia's attention and ease Germany's pressure in the east. In Austria-Hungary, an ally of Germany, in order to compete against Russia in the Balkans, or a Slavic country, will naturally be more tame with the support of Germany. Mr. Lundhert, according to your observations, can the Ottoman Empire be reborn through this revolution? Prime Minister Alexandros asked. I heard that since the Ottoman uprising, the various ethnic groups in the Ottoman Empire that originally wanted to gain autonomy are now watching. It is said that the Progress and Unification Association supports the establishment of a parliament, advocates ethnic equality, and alleviates ethnic conflicts. Among the various ethnic groups in the Ottomans, the most active supporters of autonomy are the Armenians and Arabs. Alexandros' idea of taking advantage of the civil strife in the Ottoman Empire to follow the example of the expansion of the Austro-Hungarian Empire was not supported by the Crown Prince and Venizelos, and such a good opportunity could only be given up. Although the Ottoman Empire has been losing ground since the 19th century, so far, its territory is still the largest country on the Mediterranean coast, Libya, the Arabian Peninsula, and Asia Minor. The total area of these territories is still 2 or 3 million square kilometers. The total population is about 20 million. If the Ottomans really rely on this revolution to rejuvenate and develop the potential of this land, Greece will be very passive, trembling in front of the Ottoman Empire, and the gap between the main indicators is too great. As the Prime Minister of Greece, Alexandros is naturally very worried about this. Then, it's hard to say. There are many contradictions within the Ottoman Empire. Not only feudal autocracy, religious contradictions, ethnic contradictions, separatist forces, political corruption, stagnant economic development, and widespread poverty. Lundhart pondered for a moment, said later, these contradictions are intertwined and intricate, and the main members of the Progressive Unification Association are very young. Most of them are young officers in their 20s and 30s. They have no political experience and lack outstanding politicians, even if their intentions are good. If you want to change the status quo of the Ottoman Empire, I'm afraid it's still, speaking of this, Lundhart shook his head, obviously not optimistic about them hearing these words. Alexandros calmed down after that. The conference room was quiet for a while, and everyone was pondering the information given by Lundhart. Constantine stood up, pushed open the window of the conference room, and the dull air immediately dissipated. Although Greece cannot take military action, it should indeed change its current policy, Venizelos said suddenly. Greece should be prepared, as it was before the War of 1896, for possible changes in the situation in Europe. The three of them were startled when they heard the words, and looked at Venizelos. After nearly 30 years of peace in Europe, the contradictions between the great powers are becoming more and more prominent now. Since the Franco-Prussian War, 1871, there have been no major wars between the major powers in Europe, and now the allies of Germany, Italy, and Austria-Hungary have taken shape. France and Russia are getting closer, and two opposing military blocs have taken shape, Venizelos said solemnly. And after the Second Boer War, Britain's confidence was frustrated, and it was no longer as arrogant as before, or more confident, and abandoned its glorious and isolated foreign policy. In the Second Boer War, in order to deal with the Boers with a population of just over 300,000, the British sent 450,000 troops to South Africa at the peak, which lasted nearly 3 years and cost £200 million. The poor performance of the British Army was ridiculed by European countries, and it also greatly touched the British interior. After the Boer War, Britain and Japan formed an alliance, an unexpected decision that stunned the world. In recent years, the contradiction between Britain and France has gradually eased, and the two sides have reached a compromise on the colonial side. In this way, the situation of two military blocs in Europe is very clear. Alexandros frowned, feeling disbelief at Venizelos' statement, and said, "It's too broad. Is there any definite evidence, please?" Remember this book's first domain name. Mobile version reading website, Chapter 179, The Changing Situation in Europe, 2. Alexandros has his reasons for being so resistant to Venizelos' alleged change in Greek policy since the war in 1896 and now in 1907. The period of nearly 10 years has been the fastest period of Greek economic development. Although the statement of GDP has not yet appeared, it is only from the lowest growth rate of the Greek government's fiscal revenue. From the perspective of 9%, it is possible to roughly assess the growth rate of the Greek economy from the side, and it will not be lower than this figure. Greece defeated the Ottoman Empire, and since the independence of Greece, the threat to the north has been weaker than ever, due to the failure of the Italian-Egyptian War in 1897. During this period, Italy was also politically and economically chaotic, and the desire for expansion was curbed. Under such circumstances, the two neighboring countries around Greece were caught in the predicament of their own predicament. Taking advantage of this rare gap, Greece seized the time to digest the fruits of expansion. It is precisely because the threat of neighboring countries has been greatly reduced that the Greek military, including the navy and the army, has repeatedly applied to Constantine and King George for increased military spending, but both were pressed by Constantine and Alexandros. That is, the pressure on national defense has been greatly reduced, and there is no need to invest too much money in the military in a short period of time. This has also led to the almost slow growth of Greece's military in recent years. The army's standing army has been maintained at 60,000 people for a long time. Except for the construction of several hundred-ton torpedo boats, the Navy does not have any new warships in service. The Chief of the General Staff, Emma Inner, went to the palace to lobby the royal family in person. No matter whether it was side shots or harsh words, they were all blocked by Constantine on the grounds that the development of the domestic economy was the main reason for him to suspend his participation in the army. Under such favorable conditions, the Alexandros government relied on the support of the royal family, and most of the government's fiscal revenue, except for normal expenditures, was invested in the economic field. Moreover, as the Greek economy is on the fast track, the government's finances are ample, and the Greek government's huge foreign debt has also begun to repay the principal. Instead of only repaying interest as before, the foreign debt owed to Britain and France totaling about 600 million drachmas has been repaid nearly half through the efforts of the Alexandros cabinet. The second industrial revolution, represented by electric and internal combustion engines, is in full swing, and the economies of European countries are generally developing rapidly. In Alexandros' view, this is a rare opportunity for rapid development in Greece. How can the Ottoman Revolution take the initiative to interrupt the good development momentum of Greece? The so-called change of Greece's current policy by Venizelos means to increase the investment in the field of military expenditure, reduce the funds in the economic field, and deal with the upcoming military threat in Europe. During the reform in 1897, Prime Minister Alexandros had made many enemies in Greek politics and offended many people. According to the situation at the time, he might soon be ousted by the parliament due to the rapid economic development of Greece in recent years. Alexandros relied on his excellent political performance, supplemented by the support of the royal family, and with his excellent internal affairs, he firmly secured his position as prime minister. Once the government begins to pour funds into the army, the current good situation of the Greek economy will inevitably be affected, and Alexandros naturally does not want to see such a thing happen. Constantine knew the trend of history, and naturally knew that the two major groups of the Allies and the Entente in Europe were prophets and foresight. However, Venizelos relied on his keen sense of diplomacy. This discovery shows that his ability in the field of diplomacy is outstanding. The situation in Europe is about to change, and Alexandros is good at internal affairs, so he is relatively ignorant of the complex international situation, and Venizelos' keen diplomatic insight is what Greece needs next. Therefore, under the lobbying of Constantine, King George appointed Venizelos as the foreign minister of Greece. Although the positions of Minister of Foreign Affairs, Minister of the Interior, Minister of Justice, etc. are nominally equal, the position of Minister of Foreign Affairs is quite special. For example, Prime Minister Bismarck of Germany has long held the position of Minister of Foreign Affairs of Germany, and Venizelos was appointed as the Minister of Foreign Affairs, which means that he was tacitly regarded as the successor of the Prime Minister. France has been brooding ever since it was defeated by Germany in the Franco-Prussian War and lost its throne as the hegemon of the European continent. It has always wanted to form an ally with Russia, attack Germany from the east and west, and wash away the shame of France and Prussian, Venizelos said. The crowd analyzed Russia's gold standard reform and the construction of the Trans-Siberian Railway. Most of the funds were loans to France. Even if the French feel pain, they have to do it in order to win over Russia as an ally. The Germans are naturally aware of France's strong sense of revenge, so there has always been a voice in the German General Staff. Since a war between Germany and France is inevitable, a preventive war is simply launched, and the French are still under their wing. Before Feng completely eliminate this threat, of course, such a move by Germany was opposed by Great Britain and Russia, as was unmistakably demonstrated in the Moroccan crisis of 1905. The Moroccan crisis of 1905 to 1906 refers to the crisis caused by the struggle for control of Morocco between France and Germany. This crisis led to tensions between Germany and France. Millions of German and French troops were displayed on the French-German border, confronting each other, and war was imminent. During the crisis, the German army once clamored to launch a preventive war against France while Russia was in a weakened state. Russian-Japanese War. If Russia hadn't been badly damaged in the Russo-Japanese War, perhaps the World War would have broken out years earlier. Germany once tested the British opinion on this move, but was strongly opposed by the British and had to give up later. In order to solve the crisis, an international conference was held to negotiate the Moroccan issue. France received the support of most countries, especially the United Kingdom. The conference negotiation achieved favorable results for France, while Germany was unable to applaud at the conference. The supporters only Austro-Hungarian family since the Franco-Prussian War. www.wuxiaspit.com. Germany has completed its reunification, and national confidence has been unprecedentedly high, and this crisis has severely humiliated Germany and made the Germans deeply ashamed at present. The two major military blocs in Europe, France and Russia on the one hand, and Germany and Austria on the other hand, are already clearly divided. Although the UK has not yet clearly expressed its position, from the increasing contradiction between Germany and Britain, its tendency between the Allies and the Allies self-explanatory. However, the two sides are currently only forming an alliance, and the economic development of each country is good, so it may not necessarily break out a war. Alexandros retorted, at present, the development of countries in the world is very different. The industrial development of Germany and the United States is advancing rapidly, and the total economic volume of the United States has surpassed that of the United Kingdom. According to the current development speed, the total economic volume of Germany will soon surpass that of the United Kingdom, unless the United Kingdom really be willing to give up the throne of world hegemony. Otherwise the British will have to do something to save their centuries of hard work and the hegemony they have won. Venizelos analyzed to everyone. In fact, in order to contain the two emerging countries, Germany and the United States, the United Kingdom has already settled. In Europe, the United Kingdom will inevitably join France and Russia to fight and contain Germany. For example, the recent trade war between the two countries, naval competition, etc., have made this attitude clear. Hearing this, Constantine asked curiously, "You said just now that Britain was besieging Germany and the United States in order to maintain its hegemony, so how did Britain besiege the United States, please?" Remember this book's first domain name. Mobile version reading website, Chapter 180, Change Policy. Hearing Constantine's question, Venizelos said without hesitation, "British-Japanese alliance. What does the Anglo-Japanese alliance have to do with the United States? Did the British establish the Anglo-Japanese alliance to curb Russia's expansion in East Asia? Japan and the United States are separated by the vast Pacific Ocean. There is an interesting phenomenon, whether it is the period when Britain and France jointly colonized the world, or the day when the United States dominated the world. No matter who sits on the throne of the world hegemony, containing Russia is one of the foreign policy of the world hegemony. There is no other reason. The area of the Tsarist Russian Empire is too vast. Western Europe, the Balkans, the Caucasus, Central Asia, and East Asia are all the direction of Russia's expansion. For centuries, Russia has continued to expand. By the beginning of the 20th century, the territory of this vast empire had reached more than 22 million square kilometers. The vast territory naturally gives this country the qualification to compete for world hegemony. Shortly after the establishment of the Anglo-Japanese alliance, the Russo-Japanese War broke out between Russia and Japan for hegemony in the Far East. From the perspective of the United Kingdom, forming an alliance with Japan has great strategic significance and many benefits. Venizelos responded indifferently. Constantine, Alexandros and Lundhart listened intently to Venizelos' analysis of the international situation. First, it can contain Russia's expansion on the East Asia-Pacific coast. This is a very intuitive purpose. After the Russo-Japanese War, this purpose has been achieved. Russia's tentacles extending to the Pacific Ocean have been cut off by Japan. Secondly, Japan and the United States are both countries on the Pacific coast, and the Anglo-Japanese alliance is meant to deter the United States. From the map, taking the United States as a reference, the United Kingdom is located in the east of the United States, Japan is located in the west of the United States, and the United Kingdom and Japan are located in the west. The two allies sandwich the United States right in the middle. The three of Constantine nodded their heads in yes, although Japan and the United States are separated by the Pacific Ocean. After the Spanish-American War, 1898, the United States defeated the old colonial empire Spain and occupied Guam and the Philippines. Hawaii is also in the hands of the Americans. These areas echo Alaska in the north and south, and the entire northern Pacific Ocean has been captured by the United States and has become the sphere of influence of the United States. Venizelos said eloquently, therefore, Britain's international status is now threatened by two powerful competitors, Germany in continental Europe and the United States in North America. This Thucydides trap is unavoidable. The so-called Thucydides trap refers to the contradiction between the old hegemon and the emerging country. The new rising power will inevitably challenge the old hegemon. The new king wants to ascend to the throne, and the old king is naturally unwilling to abdicate peacefully, and now the UK has already begun its layout. In order to combat these two challengers, on the European continent, the UK chose to cooperate with the Franco-Russian alliance to suppress Germany. In response to the US issue, the UK chose the Anglo-Japanese alliance, relying on the two countries in the east and west of the United States, and the Canadian colony in the north of the United States. In each direction, we sandwich the United States in the middle and implement a strategic encirclement of the United States. Listening to Venizelos' analysis, the world situation suddenly became clear and clear. The British chose to form an alliance with Japan, with very clear considerations behind it. Japan is a very important part of the British encirclement network to contain the United States, and an alliance with Japan can serve multiple purposes. Alexandros was stunned for a moment. Venizelos' analysis of the international situation is based on a lofty perspective. With a broad perspective and clear thinking, it turns out that the contradiction between Britain and Germany has intensified in recent years. After Wilhelm II came to power, Germany also began to implement a world policy, known as competing for the land under the sun. The naval competition between the two countries, and trade friction. Alexandros muttered to himself, "At present, Germany's strength is increasing day by day. Whether it is British industrial products or French industrial products, their share of the world's industrial products market has been far surpassed by Germany, and they cannot compete with Germans at all." Venizelos looked at Alexandros and said, "Prime Minister, when the two major European blocs will go to war is only a matter of time. Once Western Europe goes to war, due to the alliances between the major powers, the whole of Europe will inevitably be involved. In a chaotic place like the Balkans, the status quo is maintained by mutual restraint and restraint between the great powers. Once the European war breaks out, can Greece stay out of it?" Venizelos said with a serious face. "Now that the three Balkan countries have secretly infiltrated Macedonia, once Europe falls into war, the Balkan region will definitely be in chaos." Previously, in order to speed up economic development, Greece's finances were tilted towards economic construction, but the situation in Europe is deteriorating. "We must increase investment in the military and deal with risks," Venizelos said solemnly to Alexandros. "The number of the Greek army is currently 60,000, which is far from enough. As for the navy," Venizelos said with a wry smile and shook his head. "The British and Germans are currently competing to build dreadnoughts, such epic-making cutting-edge warships. It is said that this is the case. The new warships swept all other warships into the garbage heap of history, while the Greek navy has only built and served a few large torpedo boats through the Athens shipyards since the last war. Austro-Hungary and Italy on the Adriatic coast are also building dreadnoughts." Hearing Venizelos talking about the dreadnought, www.uxiaspit.com, Alexandros looked helpless. "I heard that the price of a British dreadnought is as high as £1.8 million, which is equivalent to more than 40 million drachmas. This is not a game that Greece can afford at all. It is purely a toy of the great powers." Alexandros shrugged. "At this price, the army can form 2 or 3 full infantry divisions," Venizelos said to Constantine. "A large part of the reason that Greece was able to win the 1896 war was that Greece completed the war preparations early, while the Ottoman Empire was in a hurry. In any case, the stagnant military development is before, and the policy of leaning toward the economy must be revised." There was silence in the conference room, and no one spoke. Anyone with a little political savvy can understand the importance of peaceful development and stability of the country to Greece. However, developments in Europe are driving Greece to change. After a while, Alexandros said in a hoarse voice, "So, how should the army be expanded?" "The army's standing army has been expanded to 100,000 people, and more technical weapons have been added to the army. At the same time, the navy should build several warships. At present, the most combat-effective warship of the Greek navy is still the Esmeralda class, purchased more than 10 years ago. It is seriously behind the world's mainstream standards. Please remember this book's first domain name." Mobile version reading website, Chapter 181, Battle of Land and Sea. In the face of the severe situation in Europe, Prime Minister Alexandros finally nodded and agreed with Venizelos' point of view that it was time for the Greek army to rearmament. Although the top government did not know who the enemy in the next war would be. On June 11, 1907, the Ministry of Defense building in Athens, after hearing that the Prime Minister and the Crown Prince finally made a decision to increase investment in the military, the senior leaders of the Greek military gathered together to discuss military affairs. The high-ranking army headed by Chief of the General Staff Emma Inner and the Navy headed by Commander Kantoridis joined hands to participate in this meeting. The Army General, the Greek Army Chief of Staff Emma Inner, sat happily at the meeting, and the joy in his heart was beyond words. Since the last war, the Greek army seems to have been forgotten, and any plan to increase the size of the army on the original basis, except for the cost of maintaining the army, has been rejected. Regarding this point, Crown Prince Constantine and Prime Minister Alexandros have a tacit understanding. Whether it is Emma Inner's soft words or harsh words, the top government officials are determined to use funds for infrastructure, social welfare, supporting industries, etc. Due to the changes in the European situation, Greece's current military strength is far from enough to protect its own security. After asking His Majesty King George, the government agreed to increase military investment. Prime Minister Alexandros was sitting at the U-shaped conference table. The top position, said to everyone participating in the meeting after a moment of silence, Chief of Staff Emma Inner said first, currently, the Greek army has only about 60,000 people, which is far from enough to deal with potential land threats. Whether the Ottoman Empire's revolution can reverse the fate of the Ottoman Empire is still unknown. However, whether it is Serbia or Bulgaria, the two countries' troops are currently over 100,000. According to the estimation of our General Staff, once Macedonia is with the changes, the size of the Serbian army can reach more than 200,000 people, while the Bulgarian army can even reach 400,000 people in the extreme state due to its more abundant population. Emma Yinner introduced to everyone, as a Balkan country, the Greek army must at least reach the same level when there is a military conflict in Macedonia. Therefore, the Army Staff Office believes that once a war breaks out in the Balkans, Greece needs to convene an army of up to 300,000 people to ensure sufficient strength, to seize benefits for Greece with a figure of 300,000 people. In order to meet Emmanuel's requirements, it is necessary to expand the current size of the Greek army by a full 6 times. Not waiting for Prime Minister Alexandros to respond to the army's request, the naval commander of Kantaretis said, at present, the Greek naval strength is seriously insufficient. The maritime threats it faces are more serious. The long coastline and numerous coastal ports make Greece extremely vulnerable to the threat of enemy navy warships. I remind everyone not to forget the shameful actions that Britain made to Greece in order to make Greece submit. The commander of the British Mediterranean fleet ordered the muzzle to be aimed at the city of Athens. Speaking of this matter, Constantine, like everyone present, felt disgraceful on his face and enraged in his heart. If the Greek navy still doesn't get the attention it deserves, such a shameful time will continue to happen, Kantaretis said with a serious face. After more than 10 years of development in Greek industry, the situation is no longer the same. Italy currently has as many as 19 pre-dreadnought ships, including those under construction and those already in service, while the poor Greek navy has only a few torpedo boats deployed in Europe. Such a huge gap is impossible in any case. Endure it. Saying this, Kantaretis was heartbroken. At present, a new situation has emerged in the development of the world's navy. European powers have built powerful dreadnought battleships, or battle cruisers. These new warships have swept all the warships before dreadnoughts into the garbage heap. The Greek navy, it should also keep pace with the times and keep up with the trend of the development of the world navy. Speaking of which, the adjutant beside Kantaretis handed a document to him. Kantaretis glanced at the document and said, to this end, the navy submits to the government a naval construction plan, including 12 destroyers, 4 battlecruisers, and 16 torpedo boats. Speaking of which, Kantaretis looked at everyone and said, the navy believes that this is the minimum naval size required to defend Greece's maritime security. Constantine and Alexandros looked at each other and smiled bitterly at each other, feeling helpless. Compared with the army's request, the navy's tone was not low, like the War of 1896. If it weren't for the deterrence of the Ottomans by our navy and the help of the army Thessalonica, Greece would not have achieved such a big victory. In order to win the funds for the construction of the navy, Kantaretis don't hesitate to invite battle. Although the Prime Minister has promised to expand military spending, it is foreseeable that military spending will still be tight. Hearing Kantaretis' remarks, the officers of the army on the left disagreed, and the Minister of Armament Giannis retorted, the last war was when our army soldiers were brave and fearless, and finally defeated the Ottoman army, and your navy also acted. Transportation, victory in war has nothing to do with you. It concerns the competition for military spending. The army is naturally not to be outdone. Yes, without the help of your navy, it is nothing more than a little more effort, and victory can still be achieved. The army personnel spoke up. www.uxiaspit.com. This time, it was like hot water was boiling in the conference room. The naval and army personnel sitting opposite the U-shaped table quarreled, and the conference room was full of clamor. It is very common for the navies and armies of various countries in the world to have conflicts and compete for military spending. For countries such as Britain, France, the United States, and Japan, the relationship between the navy and the army is poor. However, one thing is certain, that is, whether a country gives priority to the development of the navy or the army depends on the specific situation of the country itself. Island countries such as the United Kingdom and Japan will inevitably give priority to the development of the navy. There is nothing to say. Even if the armies of the two countries have great dissatisfaction, as long as the senior government officials of the two countries are still rational, it is impossible to tilt resources to the army. Once the island countries lose their naval superiority, they will be useless as for land power countries like Russia and Germany. They have no choice but to focus on developing the army. On the contrary, countries like Greece, France, and Italy, which have both land and sea, seem very embarrassed when it comes to the development of the navy and the army. On the one hand, they face threats on land, and if the army is weak, they will face the enemy's superior army. On the other hand, the long coastline and many rich commercial ports also make it impossible for them to completely ignore the navy dilemma. Please remember this book's first domain name. Mobile version reading website, Chapter 182, Bargain. The U-shaped table sits opposite the land and sea. You come and go, vying to belittle each other and elevate yourself. The conference room seems to have become a vegetable market, full of chaos. Constantine, who had a headache, patted the table with his left hand and waved his right hand to stop everyone and said, "Okay, okay, the size of the navy and army must be determined according to the specific national conditions of Greece. What is there to quarrel with?" Constantine said, looking at the crowd who finally stopped. After that, Constantine glanced at Prime Minister Alexandros, who was sitting beside him, and saw that Alexandros had a gloomy and frightening face, and said in his mouth, "The army is 300,000 people, the navy is 400,000 people. Battle cruisers, 12 destroyers, how much would that cost? Greece's finances simply can't afford it." Feelings. This prime minister was shocked by the lion's mouth on both sides of the sea. Even if the requirements of the navy and the army have not been estimated by the financial staff, just for this scale, it feels like a lot of money is needed. Regarding the size of the army, 300,000 people, don't even think about it, let alone the issue of military spending. Greece's current total population is only over 3 million people. Your 300,000 people are still 300,000 young people. In the prime of life, why do you bring in the army? There is no profit, and the government needs to pay for it. During the war, the number of troops is naturally the better. The government is overwhelmed, it is asking prices and paying back the money. The army really needs to expand, but it is impossible to get 300,000 people according to the intention of the army, but even the army numbers of Serbia and Bulgaria. Seeing that Crown Prince Constantine was determined to reduce the proposal of the general staff, Emmanuel quickly argued, "You don't need to say how many people there are in the Bulgarian and Serbian armies. Can their under-trained soldiers be compared with the well-trained Greek soldiers in Greece?" Constantine interrupted Emmanuel directly and said the combat effectiveness of an army does not depend on the number of people, but involves many factors, such as the quality of soldiers, which includes the soldier's educational level and physical condition, the number of technical weapons, such as artillery and machine guns, the quality of officers, the military's organizational capacity, financial support from the state, etc. Of course, the number of people is also an important factor compared with the Bulgarian and Serbian armies in terms of these indicators related to the main combat effectiveness of the army. The Greek army has almost crushing advantages, except that the number of troops is not dominant in terms of the quality of soldiers. In Greece, which has a relatively high economic level, almost all of the soldiers have received compulsory education, and there is no problem in reading and writing. Moreover, the army has sufficient food supply, and the physical conditions of the soldiers are also better than those of Bulgarian and Serbian soldiers. Greece has promoted compulsory education for 20 years in the country, and the results are very remarkable. So far, almost all school-aged children in Greece have received education. Compared with the two countries, the Greek army has a very significant advantage in the source of troops if it is said that the soldiers who have received compulsory education and the illiterate soldiers do not seem to have as big a difference in their education level when they are working as simple soldiers. After all, they are both big-headed soldiers fighting on the battlefield. Then, when it comes to operating technical weapons, there is a world of difference between illiterate soldiers and educated soldiers. For example, machine guns, due to the complex structure of the current Maxim machine guns, require soldiers to maintain them frequently. Those educated soldiers often only need to be taught simply by instructors, and sometimes they only need to give them an operation manual, and they can carry out maintenance of the machine gun. However, for illiterate soldiers, this task requires repeated instruction by instructors, and even requires some ingenuity. In the eyes of the officers, their performance is very stupid, not to mention operating a more complex and expensive technical weapon like a cannon. For artillery officers, the farther away the illiterate soldiers are from the cannon, the better, and it is best for them to never approach the cannon. In terms of technical weapons, most of the artillery and machine guns currently equipped by the Greek army are produced by their own arsenals. At this point, Serbia and Bulgaria are completely incomparable as for the organizational ability of the army and the strength of the state's financial support. Constantine also had considerable confidence. Therefore, although the Greek army currently has only 60,000 people, the quality of the soldiers of this army is capable, the officers are professional and efficient, the morale is high, and the combat effectiveness is very impressive. In contrast, the Bulgarian and Serbian armies were constrained by government finances, and the soldiers in the armies were mostly illiterate, with low quality and poor execution ability. Seeing that Crown Prince Constantine broke the army's tricks in one sentence, it is not the army's role at all. Exaggerating the number of troops of neighboring countries, implying that the larger the number of government troops, the stronger the combat effectiveness, in order to achieve the purpose of demanding more military spending. It's okay to fool those government personnel who don't understand the military. Constantine himself was a professional officer, and he couldn't see through the purpose of the general staff. Therefore, the number of the army has been expanded to about 100,000 to 110,000 people, and at the same time enough officers have been reserved for the expansion of the army in wartime. Constantine said to the army personnel, the main officers in the army should set up one officer and one subordinate at the same time, and train a sufficient number of officers. In peacetime, officers and subordinate officers take turns commanding the troops. Your general staff should make good plans. The officer said solemnly, this is mainly to train enough experienced officers. It is not because of the establishment of a commander and a pair of commanders who compete for power with each other, so that the command of the army is in chaos, the powers and responsibilities are unclear, and there is a situation of prevarication. It will weaken the combat effectiveness of the troops. Therefore, your general staff should study this system carefully. Constantine reminded. Specially Yearns heard the Crown Prince's plan, but half of the proposal of the general staff was not reached, so he bargained and said, since the number cannot be increased, then your highness, the number of technical weapons must be expanded in place, and the artillery unit cannot be like an ordinary army, it can be called up temporarily during wartime. This makes sense. www.wuxiaspit.com. Constantine could only say, so what? The main artillery currently equipped by the army is still the 75mm rapid-fire gun from the last war. After all, it is the technology of 10 years ago. As one of the main equipment of the army, the technical level cannot be left behind. Yearns said. Seeing that Yearns was talking nonsense in a serious manner in order to seek benefits for the army, Constantine could not laugh or cry. Greece's 75mm rapid-fire gun, as one of the main heroes of the last war, completely suppressed the Ottoman army equipped with German artillery in the war. The scene reminded the watching countries of the Franco-Prussian War, when the French army was brutalized by the Prussian army equipped with Krupp cannons. After the war, the 75mm rapid-fire gun attracted widespread attention from countries around the world. The firing rate of its ordinary artillery was several times that of the artillery designers in various countries. In terms of artillery production, Greece's 75mm rapid-fire gun can be said to be a huge hit. A wave of revolution after providing technical drawings to Germany, Britain, France, the United States, Russia and other countries became interested in 75mm artillery and put forward requests to purchase 75mm rapid-fire guns. The Greek arsenal has exported 150 artillery pieces successively. Through this business, the cost of research and development is basically recovered. Please remember this book's first domain name. Mobile version reading website. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 183, Dreadnought. There are a large number of 75mm rapid-fire guns equipped in the army. This level of artillery is still the mainstream equipment of the armies of various countries, and it has become the artillery with backward technology in the mouth of a manual, only. Relying on the 75mm artillery can no longer allow the army to maintain its firepower advantage in the face of the enemy in the next war. After tasting the advantage of artillery firepower in the Macedonian border battle, many officers in the army believed in the theory of artillery victory. The Potential opponents of the army, whether it is the Ottoman Empire or Bulgaria or Serbia, will inevitably pay attention to the construction of their own artillery after the war in 1896. The Greek army must maintain the advantage of artillery. Recently, the Greek arsenal has completed the research and development of the 105mm howitzer. The General Staff means that it hopes that the government can allocate funds for the army to purchase 200 105mm howitzers, Emma Inner continued. At the same time, due to the amazing weight of the 105mm artillery, reaching about 4 tons, and the weight of the shells reaching 32 kilograms, it is difficult to use traditional draft horses for towing, and it is very difficult to maneuver in the field. We have commissioned a tractor factory to produce a batch of special crawler type tractors, entering military service, instead of horses, can be used to drag artillery and supply ammunition. There are a lot of requests. Hearing Emma Inner's words, Constantine thought secretly, it seems that Andrus has developed a crawler tractor after supporting Andrus to build a tractor factory. After several years of development, through the imitation of American tractors and the assistance of the government's implementation of tractor purchase subsidies, it has now reached an annual output of 1,200 tractors. After learning that Benjamin in the United States had invented the crawler tractor, under the instructions of Constantine, the tractor factory immediately ordered several units for dismantling and imitation through the Greek embassy in the United States. Finally, after more than a year of hard work, finally met the requirements of the Army Logistics Department. Tractors can drive in rough terrain, but wheeled vehicles cannot. Now that crawler tractors can be produced, the Army is naturally eager to try to mechanize artillery. After negotiating with Prime Minister Alexandros, Emma Inner's request to increase the number of technical weapons in the base army was basically met, and it was the Navy's turn. Constantine and Alexandros reviewed the plans submitted by the Navy. The emergence of dreadnoughts has brought the navies of the world to the same starting line. At present, a large number of warships in service in the navies of the world are outdated and outdated. At present, the world's naval powers are building or preparing to build dreadnoughts. Contoriati said excitedly, "This is a rare opportunity for Greece's naval construction. It can directly step into the era of dreadnoughts and keep up with the mainstream of the world's navy, taking advantage of the time when the two read the naval expansion plan," Admiral Kantouratis said. In view of the lack of adequate defenses on Greece's long coastline, the Navy intends to build a fast reaction fleet responsible for defense, patrolling, vigilance, reconnaissance, etc. mission to ensure the safety of the Greek coast. Prime Minister Alexandros gave a cold face, interrupted Kantouratis' inciting remarks, and said, "Your Excellency Commander, you should be more sober. Such an expensive warship as a dreadnought is simply not something that Greece can afford. As far as I know, the price of a dreadnought is £2.5 million, and the price of a battlecruiser is almost the same as the price of a dreadnought battleship. Converted to drachma, it is the price of 40 million to 50 million drachma. What do you think? What is the use of the Greek Navy? In the plans submitted by the Navy, the main cost is still the 4 battlecruisers. As for the other 24 torpedo boats, 12 destroyers, etc., the number seems to be quite large money. The current destroyer has a tonnage of about 1,000 tons, and as for the torpedo boat, the tonnage is several hundred tons." Seeing that Alexandros' face was not good, Kantouratis said quickly, "The battlecruiser is the core of this fast reaction fleet. If it is built according to the Navy's plan, all the warships of the fast reaction fleet will have a speed of 20 once completed, even in the face of the absolute superiority of the navies of neighboring countries. This fast reaction fleet can use its speed to deal with the enemy at sea, and whether or not to engage in war can be controlled by the Navy. The reason why I chose a battlecruiser is because of its characteristics. Those who can beat it can't catch up with it. Dreadnoughts emphasize heavy armor and sharp guns, and the speed has no battlecruiser blocks, and those who can catch up with it can't beat it." Recently, Italy and Austria-Hungary have plans to build dreadnoughts. Although battlecruisers are not as powerful as dreadnoughts, their firepower is not inferior to dreadnoughts, and their speed exceeds that of dreadnoughts. Constantine interjected, "Kantouratis, whether it is Austria-Hungary or Italy, Greece cannot compete with them at sea. We cannot afford such a navy. It is beyond our capabilities. Even if it is the weakest link among the great powers, Italy has a population of 30 million after all, which is several times that of Greece. If one person pays 1 lira, it is 30 million lira. Due to the relationship between the Latin currency union, the lira, and the drake, same value in ringgit," Kantouratis continued. "What about the Ottomans? Recently, The Navy heard rumors that due to the weakness of the Ottoman Navy in the last war www.wooksiaspit.com, the Greek Navy was completely galloping across the Aegean Sea, causing Salonika was attacked and learned from this. I heard that the Ottoman Empire made a request to Germany to buy and sell battleships after the political chaos. Hearing that the Crown Prince did not intend to support his plan, he threw out heavy news. I heard that they are planning to buy the German ex-dreadnoughts Grosserscher, Wiesenberg, 2 Brandon ships currently in service with the German Navy. Fort-class pre-dreadnought both are 10,000-ton battleships, equipped with 6 280mm cannons. They are the main warships of the German Navy at present, and their combat effectiveness is very strong. As soon as this news appeared, everyone in the conference room started to discuss with each other with a buzzing sound. Everyone is very sensitive to the Ottomans buying new warships. As the victor of the last war, Greece is naturally reluctant to watch the opponent's navy regroup. The Greek Navy currently has an advantage in the Aegean Sea. Once such 2 large warships join the Ottoman Navy, Greece will have no way to compete with them, which will pose a huge threat to Greece's coastal defense. Even the Prime Minister, who has the most opinion on the expansion of the army, after hearing the news, his expression was stagnant, and his tone was 3-point weak. Then we don't need battle cruisers. Can we also buy 2 former dreadnoughts from the UK? Like you said, the UK is building dreadnoughts, and there must be a strong willingness to sell the large number of outdated dreadnoughts in the British Navy. Please remember this book's first domain name. Mobile version reading website, Chapter 184, Battle Cruiser. Your Excellency Prime Minister, according to your statement, of course, Greece can also seek the purchase of the former dreadnought from the United Kingdom, in order to hedge the situation in the Aegean Sea after the Ottoman Empire purchased the dreadnought from Germany. However, the former dreadnought itself is an outdated warship. In 3 or 5 years, these former dreadnoughts will be completely outdated, and they will have no resistance in the face of dreadnoughts from all over the world, and the cost performance is too low. Instead of spending a lot of money on outdated warships, it is better to build on this basis, aid some funds, and directly buy the most cutting-edge representatives of world naval technology, battle cruisers. The Greek Navy has such cutting-edge warships. At least in 10 years, these warships can ensure that the Greek Navy is not pulled too far by the naval powers. When his own news had an effect, the Prime Minister slowed down, and Kantoratus took the opportunity to add more. However, the price of this battle cruiser. Alexandros was still embarrassed. I think so. Let's make a compromise. The number of 4 battle cruisers is definitely too much. Greece's finances cannot afford it, so the number has been reduced to 2. Constantine Circus said. First of all, as the Admiral of the Navy Commander said, since the purchase of new warships to deal with the Ottoman threat is a foregone conclusion, simply buy the latest warships. Naval warfare is different from land warfare. Once the performance of warships is outdated, it is easy to be defeated by the enemy by a large margin. In the history of world wars, the case of the weak defeating the strong in land warfare has repeatedly appeared, but in naval warfare, the side with the advantage is almost always the winner. Furthermore, the Greek Navy has the latest battle cruisers of the 10,000-ton class, which can also boost the morale and national pride of the Greek people. Speaking of boosting national morale and national pride, everyone in the audience thought of one piece of news: the Great White Fleet. According to the news from the Greek Embassy in the United States, U.S. President Theodore Roosevelt will send a fleet of 16 main battleships and a number of auxiliary ships for a circumnavigation voyage. Because these main ships are all painted into white, so it is called the Great White Fleet. According to the visit application submitted by the Americans, the fleet is expected to visit Athens in April next year. This news instantly attracted the attention of countries all over the world. Before that, the United States was already the world's largest economic power and the world's largest industrial power. The United States' industrial output accounted for more than 30% of the world's, making it a well-deserved industrial hegemon. There is no doubt that full-fledged Americans can't wait to show their strength and voice to all countries in the world. If the Greek Navy can have such an important national weapon as a 10,000-ton battle cruiser, the patriotism of the Greek people will inevitably surge, and everyone here can't help but think of it. Of course, there is also the fact that we can enhance the country's industrial strength through the purchase of this warship, Constantine said. Seeing everyone's puzzled eyes, Constantine explained, "This is what I plan to do. One of the 2 battle cruisers will be ordered from a British shipyard, and the other one we can build locally in Greece. One of the additional conditions for the British to obtain this large order is to provide the Athens shipyard with drawings of the latest improved version of the Invincible-class battlecruiser. When the voice fell, the conference room was quiet for a moment, and immediately began to fall into chaos, and everyone discussed Constantine's proposal with each other. Prime Minister Alexandros, who was sitting next to Constantine, asked with a face full of surprise, "Your Highness, is this too whimsical? How can a Greek shipyard be able to build a 10,000-ton warship, and it is still the most advanced battlecruiser? How can we have such a complete industrial system in this era?" Battleships can definitely be said to be the representative of high-end manufacturing. The construction of battleships has extremely high requirements on the perfection and industrial level of a country's industrial system. Does Greece have such an industrial level? Seeing that everyone in the conference room was looking at him with amazement, Constantine had to explain, "Of course the industrial level of Greece is not so perfect. When I say building battleships, I mean some important components imported from abroad, such as armored steel and power systems. We can buy Harvey armored steel from the United States, or buy steam turbines and kerosene mixed-fired boilers from the United Kingdom, and the same is true for large-caliber naval guns, which can be done through tenders." Kantourides, the naval commander, is not so confident in the level of shipbuilding in Greece. His Royal Highness, the Athens shipyard is indeed capable of building ships of 10,000 tons, but the standards of civilian ships and military ships are different. Great. It does not mean that the Athens shipyard can build a 10,000-ton freighter or a freighter, so it can build a 10,000-ton warship. In order to improve the shipbuilding technology level of the Athens shipyard, Constantine instructed the general manager of the Greek Congo General Corporation, Kasterbro, to place an order for several 10,000-ton ships to the Athens shipyard to replace the Greek Congo General Corporation's subordinate ships. Smaller tonnage ships in the hands of the shipping company at the same time. In order to rapidly improve the level of shipbuilding, the Athens shipyard not only recruited a large number of high-caliber students from the University of Athens, but also hired well-known foreign shipyards with high salaries to hire experienced shipbuilding engineers. www.uxiaspit.com. In order to test Athens shipbuilding the construction level of the factory, Constantine himself even spared no expense and spent a huge cost of 35 million drachmas to personally purchase a 10,000-ton cruise ship Duke of Sparta from the Athens shipyard in the future. The Greek royal family or heads of government will take this cruise ship when they are on state visits. Since Constantine dared to make rhetoric and propose to build a battle cruiser by a Greek shipyard, he naturally had something to rely on, even if the key components are purchased from abroad. As you said, the Athens shipyard is solely responsible for the assembly. This technology requires the Athens shipyard to be. As the Greek naval commander, Kantourides, in the end, it is not good for Sri Lanka to directly express that he devalues his own shipbuilding ability. We can make a clear request to the warship builders and ask them to send certain engineers to assist in the construction of Greece. And, taking a step back, even if the Athenian shipyard's plan to build a battlecruiser fails, isn't there another outsourcing base? It will never leave the navy with nothing. Constantine explained after hesitating for a moment. Kantourides continued to ask, "The Invincible-class battlecruiser is currently one of the main battleships of the United Kingdom. We are willing to buy it. Even if the relationship between Greece and the United Kingdom is not bad, are the British willing to sell it? Especially with the additional condition that the drawings are handed over to the Athens shipyard." Please remember this book's first domain name. Mobile version reading website, Chapter 185, The Benefits of Oil. A multi-million-pound business. It's hard to imagine that Vickers and Armstrong would turn down such a lucrative business, and if they do, that's fine. We're taking orders from other countries, not only the British can build it. Battlecruisers, I think American shipyards would be very happy to receive such an order, Constantine replied confidently. Kantourides nodded thoughtfully and said, "If possible, the U.S. warships are now more suitable for the Greek Navy. I heard that the new large warships built by the United States have already abandoned coal and started to use heavy oil as a power. The boilers of the Invincible-class battlecruisers are co-fired with kerosene, and mainly use coal. Greece just lacks high-quality coal storage, and all hard coal needs to be imported from overseas. Therefore, the use of British-style battleships by the Greek Navy is unfavorable for the Navy to ensure the stability of the fuel source channels for warships. On the contrary, American warships that use heavy oil completely. The oil field in Feri, Albania, currently has an annual output of about 100,000 tons, which is more than enough to supply the heavy oil needed by the Navy. The advantages of oil compared to the traditional fuel coal are obvious. Oil-fired boilers are more efficient, which can greatly improve a ship's speed and acceleration in the case of carrying the same weight of coal and oil. The operating radius of the fleet using oil can be increased by 40%. Moreover, the effect is even more remarkable. After the ships use fuel oil, the fuel supply of the fleet will be more convenient. In the vast sea, when the fuel consumption of warships is about to bottom out, it is very troublesome to move the coal on the coal carrier to the warship. Because coal is solid, using heavy oil is different. Heavy oil, it is a liquid, and it is convenient to use pipelines to inject heavy oil from tankers into warships. The disadvantages of using coal for warships go beyond the difficulty of supplying fuel. Putting coal into the boiler requires manpower. This work is not only heavy, but also requires skills. The boiler workers need to be careful to spread the coal evenly in the furnace. The most important thing is that every 3 to 4 hours, the boiler must be turned off to clear the ashes from the combustion chamber, which is not only cumbersome and heavy, but also brings a lot of constraints during combat. Speaking of which, Constantinople put his hands up and said helplessly, "Can you imagine what it would be like during the battle when the warships in the fleet stop to clean up the ashes? It's different if you use heavy oil. You can use the valves on the pipeline to easily adjust. Under the same power, the number of boilers used by heavy oil is less, and the officers and soldiers can be relieved from the heavy coal stowing operation. More crews are devoted to combat missions." Hearing this, Constantine asked curiously, "It's impossible for the British to not know the benefits of using coal for warships. Is there a reason why they still insist on using coal as the main power for warships?" Constantine said, "That's for sure. As an admiral, the British's insistence is easy to understand, just like the Americans actively promote fuel-powered warships, because the United States is rich in oil production. Even though the British know the benefits of oil warship fuel, they still insist on using coal because Britain has abundant coal resources, but a drop of oil cannot be produced. Moreover, the Royal Navy coal suppliers would be vehemently opposed to the shift." Constantine shrugged and said, "Maybe America's all-oil-powered warships are more suitable for Greece, but, you know, we have a deep friendship with Britain." Everyone present here are high-level military and political leaders of Greece, and they naturally understand the meaning of Constantine's so-called friendship. Greece is the sphere of influence of the British in this case. Business in Greece is naturally given priority to the British, and friendship between countries needs to rely on money to maintain to some extent. Greece's purchase of British warships also has the intention of paying protection fees. Seeing that almost everyone agreed to the plan to purchase warships from the United Kingdom, Prime Minister Alexandros rubbed the corners of his eyes and said with a headache, "I roughly estimated that the expansion plan for the Navy and the Army would cost about 350 million in total. 400 million drachmas, money the government is suddenly unable to come up with. The cost of the Navy accounts for most of it, about 250 million drachma, and the recruitment of the Navy's crew is expensive. Unlike the Army, the Navy crew members are almost all technical arms, requiring high professional quality, and the work is relatively hard." Alexandros regretted for a while. If this money was used to repay foreign debts, it would be enough to repay all of Greece's current foreign debts, instead of paying creditors with tens of millions of interest every year. Prime Minister, the money must be allocated in installments. The Navy's warships also need to be paid according to the construction progress of the shipyard. The same is true for the Army, which will form new divisions in batches. The results of the meeting in the Ministry of Defense building were submitted to King George by Prime Minister Constantine and Alexandros, and King George's permission was obtained afterwards. With the support of the Navy, it spent 6 million drachmas to imitate the Athens Military Academy and established a new naval academy in Athens, which is specially used to train naval officers. In August 1907, Constantine, commander of the Greek Navy, personally led a team to England to negotiate the purchase of warships. After that, Constantine got the news from the United Kingdom. On behalf of Greece, Constantine successfully signed an agreement with the British Armstrong shipyard. The Greek Navy commissioned the Armstrong shipyard to build an Invincible-class battlecruiser at a price of £2.6 million. Afterwards, Constantine will conduct an on-the-spot inspection of the battlecruiser Invincible, which is under construction at the Armstrong shipyard's Arsips shipyard. Invincible battlecruiser, with a standard displacement of 17,373 tons, a full load displacement of 20,200 tons, a best speed of 25.5 knots, equipped with 4 double-mounted 45x caliber 305mm main guns, 12 single-mounted 45x diameter 4-inch secondary guns, 7 machine guns, 5 18-inch underwater torpedo tubes. Once such a warship enters the service of the Greek Navy, even if the two German 10,000-ton battleships purchased by the Ottoman Navy, the Brandenburg-class battleships, successfully enter the service of the Ottoman Navy, the Greek Navy can still occupy the Aegean Sea advantage. At the same time, the United Kingdom will send a naval team to Greece. They will not only guide the Athens shipyard to start construction of another battlecruiser in Greece, but will also be responsible for training qualified battlecruiser crews. Moreover, under the smooth entry of the two warships after serving in the Navy, this naval group is also responsible for guidance with the ship. Please remember this book's first domain name. Mobile version reading website, Chapter 186. 300 million drachma business. Athens Kavasha Street, Athens Stock Exchange. After the opening bell rang, the trading floor suddenly became noisy, and one after another voices appeared in the hall. Calidus and the two of them, Kapitastelius and Amonsperger, stood at the main entrance of the trading floor, observing the grand occasion. A trader surrounded by stock buyers kept writing the latest stock prices with chalk on the blackboard behind him. There are so many people buying stocks now. I don't know how long the stock market will be strong this time, said Calidus, general manager of the Royal Bank of Greece, with emotion. The economy has been relatively prosperous recently, so it's no wonder that there will be a bull market. Kapitistrius, director of the National Bank of Greece, said casually. At this moment, the traders in the crowd shouted excitedly, Tesla Power Company, the latest stock price is 14 drachma. The crowd onlookers shouted, okay, it's going up again. Tesla Power Group stock is really sought after. Since its listing, it seems to have been ranked as the most valuable company on the Athens Stock Exchange. Amonsperger, a shareholder of Alpha Bank, shrugged, looking at the change in the number representing Tesla's stock on the blackboard to 14.5. Calidus explained, Tesla Power Group has passed the initial stage of development and entered a period of stable profitability, with stable dividends every year. I heard that the dividend per share last year was 2.3 drachma, and I am engaged in a heavy asset industry. Those thermal power and hydropower stations are visible and tangible, which reassures investors even more. It is also rare in the Athens Stock Exchange. A high-tech company with a mature AC system in its hands, how can such a stock not be sought after? But now the stock price of Tesla Power Group has reached 14 drachma, with a total market value of 320 million drachma, which is a bit too exaggerated, Amonsjeep said incredulously. Calidus thought for a moment and responded, when I went to the University of Athens to recruit a few days ago, I met Tesla and had a chat with him. According to him, Tesla seems to be able to produce steam turbines on its own. This is the key investment project of Tesla Group. It is said to be an important equipment for power stations, and it can also be used as power for ships. Kapitastelius said suddenly, it's no wonder the Tesla Power Group stock has risen all the way. This is good news. The Royal Bank of Greece, National Bank of Greece and Alpha Bank are currently the three largest banks in Greece, standing at the top of the Greek financial system. The relationship between the three banks is very delicate. They are both competitors and comrades in arms. It seems that the title of the company with the highest market value on the Athens Stock Exchange, Tesla Power Group, is still stable, and the market value of Philip Pharmaceuticals, the second largest company in market value, seems to be only 120 million. The gap is really big, Amonsjeep said regretfully. As the largest pharmaceutical company in Greece, the ace product of Philip Pharmaceuticals, artemisinin, has always been very popular. In addition, it is also the largest supplier of morphine in Greece, and also produces various health and medical equipment in Greece. The company occupies 60% of the market for medical and health products, and has a huge profit to return investors every year. Amonsjeep has always been optimistic about the market prospects of Philip Pharmaceuticals, and has continued to buy the company's shares from the market for many years until now. The market value of Philip Pharmaceuticals stock in his hands has reached 1.2 million drachma. Therefore, I am dissatisfied with the market value of Philip Pharmaceuticals always ranking second. Calidus raised his left wrist, pulled up his sleeve, glanced at the watch in his hand, and said, it's 9 o'clock, it's almost time for an appointment, let's go. After speaking, he turned around and walked out of the exchange, and entered the carriage waiting on the side of the road. When the three of them were seated and the carriage drove towards the Prime Minister's residence, Amonsjeep was a little embarrassed. You said, will the Prime Minister and the Crown Prince agree to what we planned? Closing his eyes and resting, Kapitastelius vowed, why don't you agree? It's good for both parties, isn't it? After hearing that the government and the navy and army had reached a resolution of 350 million to 400 million drachma for military expansion, the three major Greek banks were keenly aware of a business that required a huge amount of funds. It is impossible to eat alone, so it is decided that the three will join forces and make this deal with the government together. The carriage stopped in front of the Prime Minister's residence, and the three entered the reception room under the guidance of the servant together with Prime Minister Alexandros. Constantine received three people after the greeting. The servants brought tea and cakes, and everyone sat on the sofa. I heard that you are going to do a business with the government. What is it? Constantine asked the three people sitting on the opposite sofa. The three of them looked at each other and nodded, and Calidus, who was familiar with Constantine, explained his intention. After all, behind the Royal Bank of Greece is the royal family personally appointed, His Royal Highness, Your Excellency Prime Minister. In the previous government's military expansion agreement, the government will spend about 400 million yuan on the military in the next few years, while the Greek government still has more than 300 million drachmas of British and French foreign debts that need to be repaid. In the next few years, there's going to be a lot of financial pressure on the government over time, right? Calidus said. Whether it is the government's military expansion or Greece's foreign debt, it is not a secret. Of course, even if it is a secret, it can be inquired according to the power of the three major banks and the political and business circles of Greece. Constantine nodded and said, "That's right." Calidus heard the words and said aloud, "We are here today on behalf of the three major banks to discuss a business with the government." Hearing this, Prime Minister Alexandros said, "What business? Our three major banks will raise money to repay this foreign debt for the government, and convert Greece's foreign debt into domestic debt. In the future, the Greek government will directly repay the debt to our three major banks." Calidus explained. Hearing what he said, Constantine vaguely guessed the purpose of the three major banks, but the old Prime Minister Alexandros, who is not sensitive to finance, was puzzled by this. What's the point of this? Seeing that the Prime Minister did not understand the purpose of their move, Calidus explained, "In fact, the Greek government issued a national debt to repay foreign debt, and our three major banks purchased national debt. In the next few years, the government will be under great financial pressure. The Greek government will not be able to repay the principal of this foreign debt, and will only be able to repay the interest of the loan every year." Alexandros nodded, expressing his approval. "This is calculated on the basis of 300 million foreign debts, and the interest is 7%. That is to say, 21 million drachmas must be repaid every year to creditors in Britain and France. We are different. The Greek government issues government bonds to us, and the interest is only 5%, which is 15 million drachmas, and for the government, it can save 6 million drachmas every year." Calidus explained to the two men carefully and patiently the benefits of the deal for the government. Furthermore, in this way, there is no need to transfer 21 million funds from the Greek domestic market to Britain and France every year. For the Greek economy, it is conducive to ensuring the stability of the domestic market currency, which is also a good thing. Our three major banks have purchased government bonds, and the interest is also 5%. It is a good investment. Although the profit is not high, it is better than the risk." Constantine and Alexandros looked at each other, and it was true that Greece borrowed foreign debts from Britain and France with higher interest rates, while national debts had lower interest rates. In this way, it is profitable for the government to convert foreign debts into national debts. That's 300 million drachmas in arrears. Do you have that much money? Even though you are the three largest banks in Greece, you have strong financial resources, and you also need sufficient liquidity. Constantine frowned and said in a tone of voice, with a hint of questioning, "These are the three largest banks in Greece. If there is any trouble, the financial order in Greece will collapse." Amon's stood up and said to Constantine, "His Royal Highness can rest assured that the finances of our three major banks are very healthy, and the liquidity is sufficient, enough to eat this 300 million drachma of national debt." Greece's economy has developed rapidly in recent years, and people have a lot of money in their hands. The savings of our three major banks have hit new highs. We are worried about finding suitable investment channels. After all, we need to pay interest to depositors. When I think of buying government bonds, the profit is stable and the risk is low, which is very suitable for large-scale capital investment. Constantine raised his brows and nodded, indicating that the capital of the three major banks could absorb 300 million foreign debts in one bite, which surprised Constantine. However, Whether it is the three major banks or the Greek government, they can indeed benefit from this transaction, and there is no reason not to support it. After Constantine and Prime Minister Alexandros discussed the specific steps with the three, they agreed to the proposal of the three major banks to convert foreign debts into national debts. Please remember this book's first domain name. Mobile version reading website, Chapter 187, The Power of Finance. After seeing off the three of them and leaving the Prime Minister's residence, Constantine, who was sitting on the sofa, fell into deep thought. "Your Highness, what are you thinking?" Alexandros asked. Constantine, who was interrupted, responded with ahem. "I'm a little surprised at the speed of development of these three major banks. They can raise 300 million yuan to purchase government bonds. According to this data, the three major banks, the capital under control is at least 900 million, and Greek finance has developed to this point." Constantine's main energy was mostly spent on the political and military aspects of Greece, and he never cared much about Greece's finances. Several Greeks suddenly came over and said that they could take over 300 million drachma of national debts, which made John Constantine was a little sluggish in his thinking. It is naturally a bit difficult to rely on the Greek market alone, but, with the Congolese market, it is entirely possible that it is not. Prime Minister Alexandros instead had a well-deserved expression. After the last war, Greece was able to win against the Ottoman Empire, which was beyond the expectations of many people. This brilliant victory gave the financial market great confidence. The survival of this restless region is no longer in doubt, so, after the war, the three major Greek banks actively explored the Congo market, entered the Congo in an all-round way, and initially established a multinational banking system. Deposits in the Congo can be withdrawn from branch banks in Greece, and vice versa. In addition, the three major banks have used their deep relations in Greece to obtain a lot of privileges from the Congolese government, and have a hot relationship with the Congolese government. As far as I know, the current tariffs of the Congolese are stored in the three major banks set up in Mada's branch bank. In addition, the branches of the three major banks in various parts of the Congo have close ties with local powerful figures, such as the chiefs of various tribes, to help them deal with property or invest. Alexandros said of the three major banks, and the things in Congo seem to be clear. During your visit to the Congo last time, Your Highness, didn't you decide to implement the policy of drachma as legal tender in the Congo? Don't forget that the three major banks in Greece now have the right to mint coins. This revenue alone, the three major banks. How much benefit will the bank get? Every drachma in the Congo will bring them a profit. This is a market with a population of about 20 million. Even if the African indigenous people are barbaric and uncivilized, this is a broad market. From this aspect, well, Congo is to Greece what India is to Britain. Alexandros gushed about the benefits the three big banks had in Congo. Speaking of which, Alexandros shrugged. Although this may be unethical, when Greece, a country with a population of less than 4 million, obtained the management of the Congo, in a sense, we have actually completed the accumulation of capital. In fact, when Greece first acquired the Congo, the population was only about 1 million. Half of the credit for Greece's current development speed can be attributed to the Congo. Sure enough, colonization is the way to get rich quick, Constantine exclaimed. Confidence brought by the victory of the war is also very important. After the last war, many Greek businessmen invested in Greece, which created a wave of investment back in Greece among Greek businessmen in Europe. At present, the stock market of the Athens Stock Exchange continues to rise, and the funds of overseas Greeks play a major role. As the three largest banks in Greece, they all have securities trading companies, and they also benefit a lot, Alexandros said excitedly. His face flushed red light. Looks radiant. Constantine held his chin in his right hand and said thoughtfully, that is to say, confidence allows money to quickly converge into the Greek financial industry. As long as Greece can continue to win, every victory can make Greece's financial sector get a leap forward. Having said that, the two of them rode in a carriage and went to the school grounds in the suburbs at the invitation of the Minister of Armaments Giannis. The carriage was carrying two people. In front of the police post at the gate, the coachman drove the carriage into the school grounds after showing his credentials to the guards with live ammunition. The so-called school field is a barren wasteland. Looking around, it is covered with withered and yellow weeds. Seeing the two come to the scene, Giannis hurriedly stepped forward and greeted Constantine and Alexandros. Afterwards, he led the two to the demonstration venue, led the way, and introduced the situation to the two. Giannis pointed to the central open space where more than a dozen staff members were watching. A strange-looking tractor with 3 zigzag wheels, a bare steel wheel at the front, and 2 crawler wheels at the back. A 75mm cannon was towed behind the fuselage. When the black smoke from the tractor's towering chimney evaporated and made a da-da sound, the 2 rubber tires of the cannon made a squeaky sound and were pulled forward. Action. This is a new tractor produced by the tractor factory imitating the American Holt Company's tractor. The crawler-type structure makes it more convenient for such tractors to operate in the field, Giannis explained. So far, the 3 tractors sent for inspection have performed very well, with a strong 35 horsepower, and can easily tow a 75mm gun according to professional estimates. This eccentric tractor can also be used to carry shells, gunners and tools. Andres, who was standing around the tractor observing its performance, saw Constantine and the Prime Minister coming, and walked forward with a happy face. Your Highness, the crawler tractor has performed well, and we will soon be able to officially mass-produce the army order after the announcement. Andres looked hesitant, and Constantine asked, "What else?" Andres hesitated for a moment, then said, "That's right, Your Highness, our company's tractor business is now on the right track, and the development is very stable. I have a new idea." Originally, how the tractor company ran the company had nothing to do with Constantine, and Andres didn't need to report the company's movements to Constantine. However, Constantine contributed a lot in the investment of the tractor company, and the tractor factory has been able to develop to the present, benefiting from the Greek government's care for this small heavy industrial company in Greece, and his next development strategy has certain risks. So you need to report it to Constantine. Your Highness, I'm going to let the factory try to produce cars. Gritting his teeth, Andres expressed his thoughts to Constantine. Constantine frowned upon hearing this. www.uxiaspit.com was a little unhappy. In fact, it is impossible for this tractor factory to operate smoothly, just relying on the small market in Greece. At present, the annual output of this factory is only more than 1,000 vehicles. Due to the scale, the production cost cannot be reduced, and a considerable part is zero. Parts need to be imported, and the entire factory is actually very limited, just barely repaying the bank's interest. Even so, it was the result of Constantine's mobilization of various resources. After all, Constantine also had his own plans for this tractor factory. What's the reason? Andres, Constantine asked in confusion. His Royal Highness, the area of arable land in Greece is not large. Even if tractors can indeed replace manpower and greatly improve agricultural production efficiency, Greece lacks a large area of flat land and the market for tractors is small, which has led to the delay in increasing the production capacity of tractor factories. I don't see any hope of this changing in the foreseeable future, Andres explained. A few staff from the Athens Stock Exchange came a few days ago and said that if our factory is willing to enter the field of automobiles and motorcycles, they can help the factory to carry out listing and financing. Under the circumstance that the tractor market is saturated, I think it's a good opportunity, and right now, in the whole of Europe, cars and motorcycles are a new and sought-after industry, and I think it's profitable. Andres said sincerely. Please remember this book's first domain name. Mobile version reading website, Chapter 188, Auto Industry. At present, the scale of the entire tractor factory is limited by the tractor market, and the operation is bleak. As the manager of the factory, I feel that I have an obligation to find a way out for the factory. At present, the automobile industry is booming throughout Europe and the United States. I think it's a good opportunity, Andres said. Constantine asked in surprise. Andres, you know, tractor factories play an important role in Greece's agriculture, as well as in the military. The crawler tractor that is currently being tested is entering military service, which is just the beginning. Fang will also have a series of orders for your company. I can understand that you, as a factory manager, are eager to find a future for the factory, but you rashly led the factory into an unfamiliar field. The risk is too great. As I said, what if the production of cars fails, causing huge losses and the factory closes? Andres patiently explained his thoughts to Constantine. His Royal Highness, if the tractor factory will always survive with everyone's support, the disadvantages may outweigh the risks. At present, some employees in the factory, they always feel that the factory is the only large-scale internal combustion engine company in Greece, and it has a strong relationship with the military, and the government's subsidy policy takes care of it, and they can ask the government for help when they are in trouble. Andres put his hands up and said, His Royal Highness, I'm afraid it's because he has received too much care that it has the opposite effect on the factory. Constantine pondered what Andrus said, and felt that it was indeed reasonable. After all, flowers that live in greenhouses for a long time cannot withstand wind and rain. After a moment of silence, Constantine said, "You said that the tractor market in Greece is narrow, but the car market will be more spacious. That thing is now a genuine luxury, not a rich person, something that can't be bought at all. As far as I know, the price of a car in Greece is about 4,000 to 5,000 drachmas. At this price, the salary of ordinary Greeks is not enough for 3 or 4 years. How many people do you think can afford it?" The tractor factory was able to operate smoothly. In fact, Constantine was very satisfied. The market of more than 3 million people in Greece could not support a complete automobile industry at all. The automobile industry includes machinery, materials, metallurgy, chemistry, internal combustion engines, control, automation, electricity, energy, etc., which is a collection of almost all aspects of modern science and technology according to the current size and industrial scale of Greece. How to make the Greek auto industry bigger and stronger? Constantine had no self-confidence at all. This is not something that a small country can do in the original time and space. Even in the 21st century, the well-developed automobile industry is just a few industrial powerhouses. His Royal Highness, this is just an attempt. There are definitely risks. Of course, I am not completely unprepared. In the initial stage, I mainly relied on imported parts to assemble cars. The tractor factory is the final assembly factory for cars. Let's test the market's reaction. In addition, cars are indeed a luxury in Greece now, but there are a lot of rich people in Greece, and they are still very interested in this kind of toy that does not require horses. Many Greek rich people are keen to invest in real estate in Greece, especially the victory of the last war, which makes many Greek businessmen feel proud. Many Greek businessmen doing business on the eastern Mediterranean and Black Sea coasts return to Greece to buy property, especially in places where YSL is the majority, like the Greeks living in Egypt and Syria. Presumably because of the cultural differences, Greece is still their spiritual home. Among them are the new generation of fanners, Greeks who lived in Constantinople and served for the Sultan, who made bets at both ends, and after accumulating a lot of wealth, transferred them for the safety of wealth. Part of the property to Greece after all. As the Ottoman Empire continued to decline, the mainstream society of the Ottoman Empire became less and less friendly to the fanners and even the Greeks. For these people, a car of several thousand drachmas is really nothing. Thinking of this, Constantine thought that maybe Andrus' approach could be tried. Seeing that Constantine's attitude was loosened, Andrus continued, "In fact, compared to cars, I am more optimistic about motorcycles. This new type of transportation has much lower technical difficulty than cars, simple structure, and high price. It is also low, and I feel that after mass production, the price will not exceed 1,000 drachmas, and the Greek people can fully afford it. I have done a business investigation. At present, those motorcycle manufacturers in Greece have very poor technical capabilities. They originally produced bicycles. Last time, the government launched together with the support of the tractor industry. These manufacturers with low technical strength have only begun to enter the motorcycle market. Limited by technology, their motorcycles are almost installed with engines on bicycles, and they have no industrial design capabilities at all, due to the weak technical ability. Almost all the important parts of the motorcycles produced by these manufacturers, such as engines and brakes, are completely imported. At present, the motorcycles purchased by the government postal department are almost reluctant to use by the postman. I think this is an opportunity for our factory. According to the strength of our factory, these shoddy industrial wastes can't compete at all," said Andrus here. Full of confidence after such a chat, Constantine felt that Andrus did have a sound idea, and it was relatively safe to operate according to his ideas, but it was not impossible. Then, since the factory has decided to enter the automobile and motorcycle market, do you rely on listing to raise the funds you need? Constantine still asked worriedly, because of the large amount of capital needed. www.uxiaspit.com. In addition to listing, there are several investors who are also optimistic about this direction and are willing to inject capital into our factory. Andrus replied. Constantine nodded and thought for a moment, finally made up his mind and encouraged Andrus. "Andrus, your factory is the only large-scale internal combustion engine company in Greece. Whether it is me or the Greek government, I have high expectations for you, and as the manager of this factory, I hope you will be cautious, facing Andrus." Constantine warned earnestly, "I'm still saying that, if you have any questions, you can come to me, I'll be happy to help." I We'll say hello to Caritas from the Royal Bank. The 7 million drachma loan can be converted into shares in the factory. As for more specific matters, it is up to you to discuss, since Andrus decided to try the car and motorcycle market. Constantine simply gave him a hand. If it succeeds, it will be of great help to the industrial development of Greece. Andrus listened to the sincere promise of the Crown Prince, and was deeply touched. Your Highness, you can rest assured that the reason why I decided to take risks is also quite certain. I am not an impetuous person. Even if these two decisions all fail, I also have the confidence to control the amount of losses. After getting the permission and support of Constantine, Andrus hurriedly left the school grounds and went to the agreed place to find investors to meet. Please remember this book's first domain name. Mobile version reading website, Chapter 189, Investor. Andrus rode a carriage and hurried to Cavasha Street, a cafe that he had already made an appointment with his friends. After walking into the cafe, he saw that several friends were already waiting for him. Seeing Andrus coming in, Angelus and others enthusiastically gathered around and asked eagerly, "How about Andrus? Has His Royal Highness the Crown Prince agreed?" Andrus hung his black coat on the backrest, sat down, took a cup of coffee and took a big sip. After gulping down, he said with a happy voice, "Yes, the Crown Prince approved my tractor factory to enter the motorcycle and recommendations for the automotive market." After that, he looked at a few prospective investors who were looking at him with bright eyes, and said, "Now, we can talk about capital injection." Andrus glanced at several pre-selected investors: Angel Hess, a Greek businessman in Constantinople; Avilov, the manager of a securities company; Demetrius, a car enthusiast; Angie Heath, I heard that you recently made a lot of money in the flower business. How could you think of investing in the machinery industry? Andrus asked curiously. Although Andrus needs funds to allow his tractor factory to enter new fields, he still has requirements for his partner. A layman shareholder who does not know anything about machinery has no value for the development of the factory. He wants to know more information on Angel Heath to make it easier to decide whether to let him take a stake. Yeah, flour isn't something unusual. Why do the powerful people in Constantinople like your flour so much? Doesn't Constantinople produce flour? Demetrios was interested in getting to know Angel Heath after the promotion of electricity in Greece. Angela soon invested in a flour mill in Greece. The flour produced was directly transported to Constantinople by cargo ships, and 5,000 or 6,000 tons were exported each year. In recent years, Angelus relying on this business, he can earn hundreds of thousands of drachmas every year. Moreover, the flour of Angelus was especially loved by the upper class in Constantinople. The dignitaries, wealthy merchants, and ambassadors of various countries in Constantinople would order flour from him on weekdays. The price of flour in Angelus is 2 to 3 times the price of ordinary flour in Constantinople. Hearing a few people asking about his most successful business, Angelus said with a smile on his face, "If you all knew the secrets here, it wouldn't be my turn to make this money." There are also differences between flour and flour. The flour produced locally in Constantinople is mostly ground by animal power. The bread made from this flour is dark yellow in color, and the wheat bran is not screened cleanly. Or stones, when you eat them, you will occasionally feel throaty, hard to swallow, and have a bad taste. Some farmers are very cunning. They will mix stones or other debris in the wheat to increase the weight. If these foreign objects are not screened cleanly, they will affect the taste of the flour. Seeing that everyone's attention was attracted by his business history, Angelus felt very fulfilled, and continued, "And the flour mills I invested in and established in Greece all use high-quality wheat produced in the Thessaly plain as raw materials. After being screened layer by layer, only those particles that are full of particles are left. The electric flour production line I ordered from Germany can screen the wheat bran and other impurities. Due to the high rotation speed, the flour produced is white and delicate. The white bread made with this flour has no variegation, is soft and delicious, and is natural, well liked by all. The dignitaries of Constantinople, the clergy, eat the best." As a matter of course, Avilov came to his senses. "I can't imagine that there are so many things about flour." After listening to Angelus' story, Andrus continued to ask, "Your flour business is so prosperous, how could you think of investing in the machinery industry?" The reason why my flour business can become popular in the upper class of Constantinople, I have thought carefully, mainly rely on the electric flour production line purchased in Germany. Not only the cost is low, but the quality is far better than those inefficient, artificial or animal-powered flour. I am very optimistic about a vehicle that does not use horses. It feels like my electric flower production line, which gives me an advantage in the competition. Angel Heath stared at Andrus eagerly and said, I am very optimistic about the auto industry. I hope to invest in your factory. I have a strong hunch that this investment will be as successful as my previous investment in flour mills. In fact, Angelus did not reveal another point, that is the relationship between Andrus and Crown Prince Constantine in the previous contacts. Constantine decisively took the lead in developing the alternating current system in Greece. Now the widespread use of electricity in Greece has proved Constantine's wisdom. The rapid economic development of Greece in recent years is largely due to the visionary of Crown Prince Constantine. His own electric flour mill is an example. Demetrius took up the conversation impatiently. When I traveled to the United States, I personally visited Ford's new factory, which left a deep impression on me. You know, Ford uses assembly lines in the factory. The method of assembling the car has shortened the car assembly time from 12 hours and 28 minutes to 10 seconds, Demetrius said incredulously. Before this, I always thought that the car is just a toy for the rich, but after visiting Ford's new factory, I think the car can be popularized. Andrus asked dumbfounded, what are you talking about, the assembly line? How can the efficiency be so high? Although tractors and cars are different in structure, it takes more than 10 hours to assemble a tractor with more than 700 workers in his tractor factory. This gap is too big. www.uxiaspit.com Demetrius, he explained, it's actually very simple. It is the division of labor between workers and cooperation. Everyone only needs to repeat their own process continuously, and the quality and output of products can be greatly improved. I bought a Model T myself and brought it back to Greece, and the performance was amazing. The 2.9-liter four-cylinder engine gave the car a speed of 72 kilometers per hour, and the car was also equipped with windshield lights, integrated high-end configurations such as front axles, steel wheels, and suspension systems greatly reduce failure rates and driving risks. Such a high-end car costs only $825, roughly equivalent to a year for the American middle class at that time, half of personal income. Having said this, Demetrius said incredulously, I heard in the newspaper that Ford's production has recently increased significantly, and it is estimated that the price of the Model T will soon drop to around $300. Ford rhetorically in the newspapers to make cars affordable for every American. So, I think cars are also very promising in Greece, so I decided to take a gamble, take all my property, 2.1 million drachma, invest in your factory and enter the automotive industry, because your factory is the only strong production in Greece. Car factory, Demetrius said, looking at Andrus. Andrus muttered to himself, $300 is about 1,500 drachmas. In Greece, this price is about 2 years' salary for the middle class. How can it be so low, please? Remember this book's first domain name. Mobile version reading website. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 190, Unexpected Boost. Demetrius looked at Andrus, who was silent, thinking he lacked confidence and was worried about the risks in the auto industry, and encouraged, take the famous Krupp family in Germany, which produces Krupp cannons, are famous for their excellent performance and are well known internationally. From Japan, the Qing dynasty, Russia, to the United States and the New World, the armies of various countries are all fans of Krupp cannons. The dignitaries became the guests of the Krupp family, including such bigwigs as the Russian Tsar, Demetrius said in a bewitching tone. However, going forward a few decades, the Krupp family is just a blacksmith shop in Essen, and all their property is 3 thatched huts, because of the manufacture of high-performance breech steel guns. With the Franco-Prussian War, the victory of an instant hit, the wealth of the Krupp family is rolling in. I think the car is another window of wealth, and we must seize it, Demetrius said enthusiastically. As a car enthusiast, Demetrius has an adventurous fanatical nature in his bones, speaking of which, tractor trucks can be seen everywhere on the roads of Greece now. Avilov interjected. This caught the attention of several people, and Andrus asked, what tractor truck? On the roads of Greece now, some tractor-modified trucks are often seen, that is, a 2-wheel or 4-wheel bucket is hung behind the tractor body, which is used to hold goods, and there is no problem with a load of 2 or 3 tons. Avilov explained, "Those tractors seem to be produced by your factory. Because of this, I think the automotive industry has a promising future. This new type of transportation is indeed useful in social production and life. So, Andres, you really intend to enter the auto market? In addition to direct investment in factories, I can also help you raise funds for your factories to go public, if you need them," Avilov said to Andres. Seeing that several prospective investors have expressed their willingness to invest in the auto industry, Andres lowered his head and pondered for a moment, and said to them, "That's what I plan to do. In the early stage, when the market is still unclear, we should be more secure. The technical requirements of motorcycles are relatively simple, and the sales price is relatively cheap. The audience in Greece is relatively large, and in terms of production, the capital required is less, and the factory will give priority to entering the motorcycle field. Moreover, there are already some workshops that originally produced bicycles to test a motorcycle market. Both the government and the Greek people have a high degree of acceptance of motorcycles. According to the strength of our factories, these manufacturers have scarce capital and poor technology. The competitiveness is limited. It is definitely not our opponent in the field of automobiles, although Model Ts are now selling well in the United States and the performance is very advanced. It is best not to be too aggressive when the prospect of the Greek auto market is uncertain. After all, Greece is not as rich as the United States. What people admire, Greeks may not like." Andres revealed his plans to several prospective investors while a few people were eagerly discussing the future blueprint for a tractor factory. Someone suddenly interjected, "I don't think it's necessary to be so conservative. Let's make great strides in the automotive industry. This is an industry with unlimited prospects." The four Andres, who were gathered together, looked at the stranger who suddenly joined, and saw him dressed in a typical businessman's attire, with a large black coat, a small brown vest inside, a bowler hat on his head, and a civilization in his hands. Zun, wearing a pair of golden glasses, fair skin, ruddy complexion. Andres looked at the visitor in surprise and said, "Mr. Yakov? Why are you here? Haven't you been in Feri, Albania for the past few years?" The person who came was the manager of the Purple Robe Foundation appointed by Constantine, Yakov, a Jew. "I also just returned to Athens by train from Feri today. I heard from Crown Prince Constantine that you plan to enter the automobile industry, so I hurried to find you." While speaking, the waiter took Yakov's hat, cane, and coat, and Yakov sat next to the crowd. The Zipeo Foundation, managed by Yakov, is the largest shareholder of the Greek oil company. After the establishment of the Zipeo Foundation, there is no other investment project that needs to be organized by Yakov. Since the oil field development in Feri City has been on the right track, Yakov simply lived in Feri all year round. Andres Tractor Factory is the only large-scale internal combustion engine company in Greece at present. The gasoline sales of Greek Petroleum Corporation are closely linked to the tractor factory to a large extent, and the two companies are at stake at present. The sales of gasoline and diesel in Greece's petroleum products, in addition to kerosene and heavy oil, have been unsatisfactory. Kerosene can be used for lighting. Although Greece has promoted the application of electricity on a large scale, due to too many mountains, there are still some remote areas that cannot be connected to the power grid. These areas are the places where Greek oil companies sell kerosene. The rest of the kerosene was directly loaded in the port of Laura and exported to Italy on the other side of the Adriatic Sea. As for heavy oil, it is mainly used in ships. Coal sprayed with heavy oil burning in kerosene co-firing boilers provides power for ships in order to promote heavy oil, an important byproduct of petroleum refining, and reduce the import of coal. Hellenic Petroleum Corporation has been selling heavy oil at low prices for long-term interests, just to encourage Greek ship owners to switch to kerosene co-firing boilers. For Hellenic Petroleum Corporation of heavy oil provides a long-term market at present. The sales of kerosene and heavy oil of Greek oil companies are not bad, but the sales of gasoline are not ideal. Although the people of Greece already have thousands of tractors using gasoline, the use of tractors has a strong seasonality. During the busy agricultural season, when tractors enter the busy season, the gasoline of the Greek Petroleum Company is only sold. However, except for the busy agricultural season at other times of the period, gasoline was nowhere to be found. Moreover, the gasoline consumed by such thousands of tractors is insignificant compared to the current annual output of the Greek Petroleum Company of about 20,000 tons of gasoline. As one of the main byproducts of petroleum refining, the sales volume of gasoline in Greece has always been unsatisfactory. However, The distillation method currently used in petroleum refining has an oil yield of about 20%. Currently, the oil field in Ferry can produce oil every year. The crude oil is 120,000 tons, and the refined gasoline is about 20,000 tons. The output is very impressive. The Greek oil company is very distressed about this. Because gasoline is highly volatile, it is easy to cause explosions. This situation makes gasoline very tasteless. It is a pity to throw it away. It is more than 20,000 tons. It is very dangerous to store such a large output. Several explosions have occurred in the warehouses of Greek oil companies over the past few years, mostly related to the volatilization of gasoline. Originally, Yakov was reporting to Constantine about the oil company and the ZPO Foundation's income. Yakov complained to Constantine about the trouble with gasoline. www.wuxiaspit.com. Constantine smiled and said to Yakov, maybe it won't be long before he will dislike the production of gasoline too little. Then he revealed to Yakov that Andrus Tractor Factory had plans to enter the auto industry. Yakov has been dealing with oil for several years, and he is considered a veteran in the oil industry. Before automobiles appeared on a large scale, gasoline was always a headache for oil practitioners. The biggest role of oil is to extract kerosene and burn lighting. As for gasoline, it is easy to cause an explosion when mixed in kerosene, but Lenovo's recent boom in the U.S. auto industry has made gasoline, a previously unloved commodity, suddenly a lucrative commodity in the U.S. The American oil king, Rockefeller, was very enthusiastic in supporting the promotion of automobiles. Andrus' intention to enter the auto industry is also good news for Greek oil companies. So much gasoline production is finally useful, so Yakov enthusiastically came to participate in the auto investment negotiation. After asking Constantine where Andrus was going, the ZPO Foundation, can also count as a share to help your factory enter the auto industry as soon as possible. The ZPO Foundation can invest 7 million drachma, and the requirements are very simple. You can start the car production line as soon as possible. Gasoline, Yakov said. Please remember this book's first domain name. Mobile version reading website, Chapter 191, State of the Union Address. In the weather of November, the cold wind has begun to rage, and in the reception room of Tatoi Palace, the dry wood in the fireplace is crackling, and Constantine and Yakov, who are sitting in front of the fireplace, feel warm and warm. So, Andrus is already planning to build a car production line. Constantine said to Yakov, constantly stirring the hot coffee in the cup with a spoon, yes, Mr. Andrus has found a few investors, and the initial startup capital is enough. Yakov sat respectfully in the chair and replied solemnly, how is the performance of the Greek petroleum company recently? Has it improved? Constantine asked indifferently. Since its establishment, the Greek petroleum company has not made a profit so far. The income obtained from the sale of kerosene and heavy oil can only cover the expenses of the initial investment, which is almost the same. The construction of the refinery has been completed, and the prototype of the sales channel of petroleum products has been formed. In the next period of time, if there are no accidents, the Greek oil company will enter a period of stable profitability, Yakov reported. Once the internal combustion engine is further popularized in Greece, there should be a rapid leap in the revenue of Greek oil companies, Constantine reminded. Yakov seemed to be reminded by Constantine's words and said, His Royal Highness, the research team led by Gard. Recently seeing that Constantine was at a loss to gad, he explained, Gard is a chemical researcher hired by the Greek petroleum company. He has been researching topics related to petroleum refining in the laboratory in Ferry City. Recently, Gard's research group, with a technological breakthrough, has improved the distillation method and found that increasing the pressure during its standard heating process can crack kerosene into gasoline. The smelting efficiency of gasoline has doubled, and the oil yield has reached 40%, Yakov said. I think this technology is very useful in the future, so I have increased the investment of oil companies in this technology, Yakov explained. Although the main income of Greek oil companies is still the sale of kerosene, including the part exported to Italy, the future lighting market, I think, must belong to electricity, and now all major countries seem to recognize electricity. The advantages of kerosene and the rush to build thermal power stations have cast a shadow over the market prospects of kerosene. On the contrary, it is gasoline, which is not paid much attention to now, and is likely to become the protagonist of petroleum products in the future. Constantine stood up and said with admiration, It's a very forward-looking approach, even though the oil cracking technology can only be a reserve technology. In short, The affairs of the Purple Robe Foundation and the Greek Petroleum Company will be left to you to manage. It is also a wise choice to invest in the Andros factory." Having said that, he got up and left the reception room first, and went to the royal palace in Syntagma Square to attend the state affairs meeting. When Constantine arrived and took his seat, the ministers of the Greek ministries had already arrived. At present, the total population in Greece has reached 3.87 million, of which 3.2 million are Orthodox Christians, and the rest are mainly MSL. Prime Minister Alexandros said in his State of the Union address, "I think the population incentive policy in Greece is still very successful, and the measure of distributing 50 drachmas to Greek families with more than 4 children has had a positive effect." As time entered 1910, Alexandros, who had served as prime minister for more than 10 years, also entered the countdown to his political career. This was probably the last time he chaired a meeting. Therefore, this State of the Union address, for Alexandros, is more like a meeting to introduce political results. The achievements of education should not be underestimated. Greece's compulsory education has been very successful in recent years, and it has contributed a lot to the growth of Greece's population, said Education Minister Laris. Those children who have received a full 5-year compulsory education, regardless of their parents' senses, have their own national identity with the Greek strengthened, especially in the Albanian region. Through the widespread promotion of education, the Albanian national identity of the local population has been shaken. Although some local Albanians have raised funds to assume some Albanian schools, but, limited by the lack of funds and the learning of the population, the willingness is not high, and it is obviously not a climate. The real rich people in Albania are mostly landowners. Under the implicit hint of the Greek government, in order to keep the wealth in their hands, many of the descendants of these landowners converted to orthodoxy. Speaking of this, Larry's happy mood is beyond words. Mandatory, free compulsory education, almost no one can refuse. The increase in grain production has provided the basis for the growth of Greece's population. At present, Greece has maintained zero tariffs on imported grains from abroad, and domestic grains have always been relatively cheap. Rice from Congo, wheat from Ukraine, plus domestic production, are stable. The food supply contributed to the population growth of Greece, Constantine added. In terms of agriculture, the agricultural cooperatives that have been promoted in China in recent years have developed very well. People are engaged in agricultural production like operating companies. In recent years, the domestic food in Greece has also grown steadily. In fact, the reason for maintaining the domestic grain price at the land price level is not only to promote population growth, but also to weaken the will of non-Greeks to resist whether it is Greek wheat or imported Congolese rice. It also provides a material basis for promoting national unity. Easily fill your stomach. www.wuxiaspit.com. Even those who do not identify with the Greek nation will not easily go to extremes. In order to maintain the national stability in Greece, we still insist on adopting a multi-pronged strategy and make efforts from the aspects of culture, education, law, economy, etc., to increase the emotional identity of the domestic people. Alexandros concluded, culturally, maintain the mainstream cultural status of Greek culture, vigorously promote Greek education and education, adhere to fair law enforcement and law, and economically increase people's income and provide residents in Greece with a relatively relaxed life. Last year, 1909, Greece's fiscal revenue reached 820 million drachmas, an increase of 8%. Greece's steel production has reached 390,000 tons, and the current growth is sluggish, said Industry Minister Myers helplessly. The lack of coal and iron ore is still the main reason for restricting the development of heavy industry in Greece. In recent years, we have obtained iron ore from southern Spain and imported British coal to raise raw materials for Greek steel mills, all of which have to be imported. The cost of steel is very high, and this situation will not improve until Greece does not have its own hard coal and iron mines. The sluggish growth of steel production is no longer news in Greece, and no one expects a miracle to happen this year. Greece's big consumer of steel, the army. In order to save, please remember this book's first domain name. Mobile version reading website, Chapter 192, Food Security System. When it was the turn of Agriculture Minister Papanasiteos to speak, the minister's face was gloomy and terrifying, with a rich face full of grim expressions. As the Minister of Agriculture of Greece, I think we should pay attention to the agricultural issues in Greece. The Zero tariff policy for agricultural products that has lasted for many years has led to foreign grains flooding the grain market in Greece, whether it is Russian grain, Congolese rice, and of course, including the new American grain in recent years. The agricultural production conditions in these places are superior, or there are special systems. In contrast, the domestic agricultural conditions in Greece are not good, and the domestic farmers have no competitive advantage at all. Due to the meager profit in growing wheat, many farmers have switched to other crops. More and more farmers are turning their fields into economic crops such as olives, grapes, tobacco, cotton, etc., especially cotton. Due to the developed cotton textile industry in Greece, the demand for cotton is increasing day by day, and the price of cotton is a very attractive force. Most of the high-quality land used to grow wheat is now cotton fields. The food production capacity of the Greek mainland has been weakened to the point that if this situation is not taken seriously now, as time goes on, the situation of farmers abandoning food cultivation will be more serious. Having said this, Papanaseteos looked at his colleagues and asked, in peaceful years, it is of course no big deal to import food from abroad, which is good and cheap, but in the event of a war, or a big accident such as large-scale famine, Greece cannot buy enough food in the international market. What will happen? The Greeks cannot fill their stomachs with cotton. In order to express his strong anxiety, Papanaseteos waved his hands while speaking. When everyone in the conference room heard these remarks, they discussed each other in a low voice. King George, who was sitting in the first seat, had a look of embarrassment on his face. Prime Minister, although the probability of a war or a catastrophe that is enough to affect the international situation is not high, the food security of Greece cannot depend entirely on luck. This zero-tariff policy on food, is it questionable? Alexandros frowned, fell into contemplation, and remained silent. Obviously, he was also concerned about the food security statement of Papanaseteos. Seeing the silence in the conference room, Constantine coughed and said, "First of all, Greece implements a zero-tariff policy on food, with a very clear purpose, to keep food prices low, which can encourage population growth, and at the same time there is another purpose, that is, to promote the development of industry. The low price of food is good for promoting the development of industry, and those workers can buy food with less money. If the zero-tariff policy on food is abolished, then the population incentive policy in Greece will be affected. Families with more children will immediately be in trouble due to the rise in food prices. The rising food prices will offset the 50 German government-issued welfare of LACMA, against people's willingness to have children." Constantine emphasized to everyone, for the current Greece, the population issue is the most important and urgent, and encouraging population fertility is the core of all current policies in Greece. We should keep this in mind when making decisions. A little obviously, abolishing the zero-tariff policy on grain goes against this. It is true that the farmers of Greece have paid a price for this. Food production has been affected, and food security in Greece has been threatened. But this is a necessary price for us to achieve our main goals. The situation in Europe is becoming more and more unstable. Greece now needs more population to gain some advantages in the complex Balkan Peninsula, Papanaseteos said helplessly. But how to solve the dilemma of food security? There is no guarantee of food security. I'm afraid that the more the population of Greece, the greater the trouble. Constantine thought about it for a moment and said, as for food security, first of all, it is not as severe as Papanaseteos said, and the worst result is that Greece cannot buy a grain of grain in the international market, and there are Congolese colonies to rely on. As the Congolese colonies developed, agricultural output there increased, all being limited by climatic problems, and could only grow rice instead of wheat, which was more acceptable to the Greeks. But Congo is far away in southern Africa, thousands of nautical miles from mainland Greece, and the transportation route is too long. The reliability of this food route is doubtful, said Agriculture Minister Papanaseteos. Papanaseteos is dissatisfied with Greece's food tariff policy. On the one hand, as the Minister of Agriculture of Greece, he is indeed worried about the development of Greece's agriculture. There are also other reasons. For example, some large local landowners in Greece, the domestic food prices continue to be low, seriously hurting the interests of these people. These large landowners continue to lobby the Minister of Agriculture Papanaseteos. Well, the zero-tariff policy on grain cannot be changed, but food security cannot be ignored. The Greek government has established a new agency, the Grain Reserve Board, to specifically ensure food security in Greece. In fact, Constantine thought of the Changping warehouse system in the history of China. The core purpose of this system is to ensure the stability of grain prices. When the grain is harvested, the price is low. Buying a large amount of grain will raise the price of grain and prevent the price of grain from becoming cheap. Injury to farmers, and when food prices rise, they sell food and depress food prices. In fact, the government intervened in the economy to prevent the sharp rise and fall of food prices, which led to national turmoil. Constantine explained to everyone the benefits of regular open positions. Of course, we certainly can't just imitate them. After all, the national conditions are different, and the price of grain in Greece needs to be kept at a low level. We mainly focus on the role of Changping to maintain food security, so www.wuxiaspit.com. In specific practice, it is necessary to combine the actual situation of Greece. At present, in the agricultural production of Greece, there is a trend of joining agricultural cooperatives, reduce costs and increase the price of agricultural products, and the newly established Grain Reserve Bureau can cater to this trend. By placing orders with agricultural cooperatives, wheat is purchased in Greece as a reserve grain. This kind of cooperation, whether it is the Grain Reserve Board or the agricultural cooperative, can benefit from it. By placing orders with a cooperative, the Grain Reserve Board can reduce the procurement costs, and these agricultural cooperatives, because of their intensive operation, have lower production costs than those of retail investors, and are also profitable. They can also directly purchase the insufficient share of grain from Russia or the United States. This has the advantage of ensuring that Greece has a certain food production capacity. Constantine explained his thoughts to the crowd. As for how much grain the Grain Reserve Bureau needs to store, it is calculated by meeting the grain needs of Greece for half a year to a year under extreme conditions. Even if the rice in the Congo will not be able to supply Greece at that time, with a minimum half-year's supply of grain as a buffer, it will give Greek farmers sufficient time to change the land that used to grow cash crops to grow grain. Constantine's idea has won unanimous approval from everyone, and it is indeed a safe consideration of food security and food tariff policies. Please remember this book's first domain name. Mobile version reading website, Chapter 193, Invincible Class Entry. On November 11, 1910, a mighty battle cruiser, escorted by 2 British cruisers from Gibraltar, appeared off the coast of Piraeus. The Greek people, who had already received the news, woke up and stood on the pier and looked forward to it, until the loud whistle spread far from the sea, and the Greek and British flags flying high on the mast of the battleship appeared in the crowd. In front of them, everyone shouted at the warship. Together with Sophie, Constantine came to Greece on behalf of the royal family to welcome the battle cruiser Trikoupis. The latest type of warship purchased by Greece from the United Kingdom at a high price was named Trikoupis, just to commemorate the former Greek prime minister with outstanding political achievements, who was determined to reform and develop industry and commerce during his reign, and successfully led Greece to defeat the old enemy Ottoman. After the Trikoupis is commissioned, it will also become the new flagship of the Greek Navy. Amid the enthusiastic cheers of everyone, the 17,000-ton battle cruiser Trikoupis was anchored off the pier of Piraeus port. Constantine raised his right hand between his eyebrows, and saw a rubber boat rowing towards the shore. Several Greek naval personnel boarded the land from the rubber boat. Constantine greeted him and gave the leader a hug. "Congratulations, Commander Cantorides, now you finally have a decent flagship." As for the other Invincible-class warship built by the Athens shipyard in Greece, due to the inexperience of the Athens shipyard in building warships, it was suddenly commissioned to build a warship of more than 10,000 tons, even if it was dispatched by the United Kingdom. The main components are also purchased from the UK. The Athens shipyard is basically only responsible for the construction and assembly of the hull. The construction process is still bumpy. Cantorides first took a step back, gave Constantine and Sophie a military salute, and said aloud, "Your Highness, the Greek Navy Trikoupis is just entering service." While the two were talking, several other Navy personnel came to welcome the crowd. Soon everyone exclaimed. It turned out that the Greek people who came to the pier to greet the warship could take turns to visit the newest Greek Navy ship with the largest displacement, the most advanced warships. After the greeting, Cantorides pointed to a young officer in a naval uniform behind him, and introduced to Constantine, "Your Highness, Crown Princess, this is Colonel Henry of the Royal Navy." In the future, Colonel Henry will accompany the ship to help the Greek Navy crew familiarize themselves with this warship, and at the same time help train artillery. In the current Navy, without the assistance of electronic equipment, It is not an easy task to accurately hit the moving enemy warships with cannons on the vast sea. Hearing this, Constantine shook hands with Captain Henry enthusiastically. "Thank you for your help, Captain Henry. How are you going to train our Greek sailors?" The British officer named Henry gave the same salute and shook hands. As a member of the British Royal Navy, Henry naturally did not want to fall into his own prestige, and said confidently, "His Royal Highness, despite training the crew of the Invincible-class battleship, yes, it's a very complicated thing, but I'm still confident that I can train the Greek Navy to be as elite as the British Navy. After all, Greece also has a deep maritime tradition and there are very good seamen here." Henry also gave a small compliment to Greece. Constantine smiled. On the surface, the relationship between the two parties seemed to be very harmonious, which perfectly explained the friendship between Greece and Britain. In fact, whether it was Constantine or Henry, everyone knew very well that the officers sent by the Royal Navy to the ships were not just out of kindness to help Greece. The Invincible-class battlecruiser is currently one of the main battleships of the United Kingdom. It is also a member of the Invincible-class battlecruiser along with the British Navy's Invincible. It is no exaggeration to say that the equipment installed on it is the latest in the British Navy crystallization of technology. Britain's promise to sell the Greek Navy's Invincible-class battlecruisers was the result of a combination of factors. In fact, according to the British side, after the Greek Navy expressed their intention to buy warships, they planned to select 2 of the former dreadnoughts in active service in the British Navy and sell them to Greece, just like the Germans sold the former dreadnoughts to the Ottoman Empire. It can also achieve the purpose of the Greek Navy to balance the Ottoman Navy in the Aegean Sea. After the advent of the dreadnought, the British Empire had spent a lot of money before, and the former dreadnought, which was the largest in scale and firmly occupied the world's leading position in total tonnage, suddenly fell into an embarrassing situation. The appearance of the dreadnought made the former dreadnought suddenly change from an absolute main warship to a dispensable humble character. The role of the service battleship is very simple and rude. It is for the main decisive battle, who controls the sea power, and pays attention to heavy armor and sharp artillery. Its expected combat scenario is to be the absolute main force of the Navy, lined up in battle lines, and have a showdown of cannons and giant ships on the sea. Therefore, these former dreadnoughts are not comparable to full heavy artillery battleships such as dreadnoughts in terms of firepower, and they have no advantages in armor and maneuverability due to the slow movement of the former dreadnoughts, letting them do tasks such as reconnaissance, patrol, support, and vigilance is not comparable to cruisers and destroyers. This is also the reason why the Greek Navy chooses the Invincible-class battlecruiser when the price of the Invincible-class and Dreadnought-class battleships is not much different. www.wuxiaspit.com. The battlecruisers are all-rounders in naval battles and the main force in decisive battles. Even if the opponent is a dreadnought warship, in a short period of time, at least the Invincible-level firepower will not fall, and it can barely do it. Maritime reconnaissance, patrolling, vigilance, supporting one's own destroyer and cruiser formations, and even minelaying and merchant ship escort, such chores, battlecruisers can do both. Battlecruisers have the following advantages: those who can beat me can't catch up with me. Dreadnoughts, those that can catch up with me. Cruisers and destroyers, can't beat me. This is why, from the Navy to the government, from beginning to end, no one has mentioned the purchase of dreadnoughts. And if the British Navy can sell the backward former dreadnoughts to Greece, it can not only solve the problem of a huge number of former dreadnoughts, but also allow the British Navy to return funds and compete with the Germans in naval competition, killing 2 birds with 1 stone. However, Commander Kantouratis was very firm. When the Greek Navy purchased warships, it required the Invincible-class battlecruisers in naval battles. The large number of former dreadnoughts in the British Navy were not considered by the Greek Navy at all, and this Colonel Henry, who was sent to Greece by the British Navy, not only came to teach the Greek crew to be familiar with warships, but also infiltrated the Greek Navy and expanded the British influence in the Greek Navy. As for the details, refer to the influence of the German army in the Ottoman Empire. Please remember this book's first domain name. Mobile version reading website, Chapter 194, Athens Naval Academy. Although he knew that Colonel Henry, who was appointed by the British Royal Navy, had impure motives and was suspected of supervising the Greek Navy, who asked Greece to ask for help, Colonel Henry, can you tell me how you plan to train Greek seamen? Constantine said with great interest. The current largest warships of the Greek Navy are the 2 Esmeralda-class armored cruisers, with a displacement of only about 3,000 tons. Compared with the 17,000-ton battle cruisers, the complexity of the 2 sides is completely different. The 2 3,000-ton Esmeraldas have a crew of 130 people. According to Constantine's knowledge, the invincible battle cruiser that has been in service in the British Navy has a crew of more than 1,000 people. A war machine that requires quite a bit of crew control. Before that, excluding the employees and clerks in the naval bases, there were more than 2,000 crew members of the Greek Navy who actually worked on warships. After all, the previous equipment of the Greek Navy was all small ships, just like those with a displacement of only 2 torpedo boats and patrol boats of about 100 tons. Although there are a lot of them, there are usually only 2 to 30 people on a single ship. Obviously, the Greek Navy has no experience in handling 10,000-ton warships at all, and the number of crew members required for the 2 battle cruisers has reached more than 2,000, which is almost the same as the total number of crew members of the previous Greek Navy. It is also a hassle to find qualified and sufficient crew members to control such a large warship. Hearing this, Henry smiled apologetically and said, "His Royal Highness, although I have a preliminary plan for the training plan of the Greek Navy, I still lack understanding of the Greek Navy personnel. How is your naval school? There are enough talents in reserve, is it?" Constantinople hurriedly replied, "The Greek Naval Academy has been established for 3 years, and the talents it has cultivated are sufficient for the service of new warships. Colonel Henry, don't worry about this, we have already trained some seamen in advance, speaking of which, in order to prove to Henry that Greece has a sufficient reserve of naval talents, he continued, the Athens Naval Academy pays attention to the balanced training of military officers, and trains every naval cadet as a university elite. The teaching subjects of the Naval Academy include not only basic military training, basic navigational training, alternate officer training and naval practice, but also subjects such as law of the sea, economics, oceanography, mechanics, foreign languages, and philosophy. The teachers of the Athens Naval Academy are not only soldiers, but even engineers, professors of philosophy and law, marine and zoologists, mathematicians and astronomers, linguists and professors of medicine. The school also regularly invites some well-known professors to give lectures, help students to broaden their horizons. The military school has a profound heritage and an excellent teaching environment. If someone asks which is the best university in Greece, there is no doubt that it is the University of Athens in Greece. It has been established for a long time and has invested a lot from the Royal Education Foundation. It is the best comprehensive university in Greece and represents the highest level of higher education in Greece. If you say which is the fastest growing university in Greece, there is no doubt that the answer is the Athens Naval Academy. Constantinople, the commander of the Navy, is very courageous. After obtaining permission from the government to establish the Athens Naval Academy at the National Defense Conference, the Navy invests about 20 million drachmas in the school every year. This move made him bear the burden. Enormous pressure. Both government officials and the Navy have objections to Constantinople's move, believing that the Navy commander took the Navy's funds and worked as the Secretary of Education. Some middle and senior naval officers accused that if the money was used to buy warships, the Greek Navy could have added a few more light cruisers to this end. Constantinople personally visited Constantine to seek the support of the Crown Prince. The words of Constantinople to persuade Constantine were, "War is not only a science, but also an art. In addition to good military literacy and perseverance, the performance of every commander in war, closely related to his imagination and artistic attainments. Only those commanders with the most creative imagination can create outstanding works. The Greek Navy only has ships and cannons, which is far from enough to become a powerful navy. Those who control the warships are even more important, because they are the nerve center of the warships. The Greek Navy spends millions of pounds to buy warships, but is reluctant to train more important sailors." Constantine, considering that the Navy really needed technically literate crew members, agreed to support Constantinople's somewhat absurd move. A large amount of naval funds was used for the teaching funds of the Athens Naval Academy. Besides, even the training method of Constantinople has no effect on the improvement of the Navy's combat power, and Greece has nothing to lose. At worst, the money is used to train Greek talents. It was with the support of Constantine that in the Naval Academy of Athens, in addition to the military subjects related to the Naval Academy, there were many courses that were completely irrelevant to the Navy in the eyes of others. What philosophy, law, oceanography and zoology, as well as math, astronomy, linguistics, medicine. In the eyes of many people, what kind of naval academy is this? This is like a comprehensive university, and it is still of a very high level. Many people said in noise tone that if the University of Athens did not work hard, it would be surpassed by the Naval Academy. Constantinople told Henry about the situation, which surprised Henry. Reading www.uucanchu.com Fanfic.com. This teaching model completely regards the Athens Naval Academy as a key university. Henry can fully appreciate the development of the Navy in Greece. Determination. We built the Athens Naval Academy, inspired by the German Naval Academy in Kiel, and attached great importance to the comprehensive quality of the Naval Academy, Constantinople said confidently. Constantinople was a soldier after all, and his personality was influenced by his military career. He never thought that in front of Henry, a captain of the Royal Navy, he would mention the inappropriateness of the Athens Naval Academy. Following the German Kiel Naval Academy, seeing Henry's disdainful expression, Constantinople remembered that the competition between the German Navy and the British Navy was heating up. The German army is indeed very strong, but these Germans are still newbies on the sea. As a continental country, it is a bit stupid to even try to encroach on sea power, Henry said slightly arrogantly. For every capital ship the Germans build, the British Empire can build two. From Constantine's point of view, Henry's words actually make sense. As a continental country, Germany, as a continental country, has absolutely no advantage in competing with the island country of Britain in the ocean. The most obvious point is that the British Empire can do whatever it takes to dominate the sea. The German Navy obviously cannot do this. As a country on the European continent, Germany must maintain a strong army. After all, the army is the backbone of the German military, not the Navy. Please remember this book's first domain name. Mobile version reading website, Chapter 195, Ocean Voyage. Of course, the British Empire holds the trident of the sea god, the king of the seven seas, and the Germans are naturally not opponents. But Colonel Henry, can you tell us about your training plan? Constantine changed the topic from the relationship between Britain and Germany. The conflict between them is shifted. That's right, Your Highness. I have already discussed with His Excellency Constantinople. In view of the serious lack of experience in the construction of large warships in the Greek Navy, the Navy lacks elite crews with sufficient literacy to supplement the troops. So I plan to lead a group of Navy crew members to conduct ocean-going training. Even a Navy rookie, after such a long voyage, can become a Navy elite, and can train a group of experienced crew members in a short period of time. Henry and Constantinople looked at each other and replied. Constantine nodded. So which ships will participate in this ocean voyage? And the specific route of this ocean voyage? That's it, His Royal Highness. We plan to dispatch the Banning in the Navy to participate in this ocean-going training. The Greek Navy does not have large ships, and this ocean-going training must ensure that the newcomers have enough jobs for them. Internships, gaining practical experience in operating a large warship, so I chose this warship, explained Constantinople. In addition to this warship, we also plan to lease a civilian passenger ship to accompany us. First, the Esmeralda-class warship has a limited crew, and secondly, it can give the tired crew a place to rest. The Navy in this era is actually very hard. The crew needs to live on the ship all year round, drifting on the sea, and the accommodation conditions are also very poor. For example, on the Banning, the displacement of the ship is only 3,000 tons, which is a small and medium-sized warship. Since it is a warship, most of the space must be given way to military facilities, such as naval guns, armor, ammunition depots, coal bunkers, food storage depots, etc. Not much room for crew. Most of the crew members live on bunk beds in collective dormitories. The upper, middle and lower bunks are like hard sleepers on trains. Even the officers in the Navy are mostly narrow single rooms that can accommodate a single bed, a few cabinets and a folding table. Although the conditions are much better than that of soldiers, such conditions are still very depressing. In contrast, the situation of civilian ships is much better, and most of the space can serve the crew. After all, civilian ships do not have those heavy armor and artillery, and there is no need to set up many watertight compartments in order to improve the sinking resistance of the ship. Compared with warships, the living conditions of civilian ships are much more comfortable. That's why Constantinople thought of renting a passenger ship to travel with him, as for the specific sailing route. Having said that, Constantinople looked at Colonel Henry. The sailing route is around Africa, Henry said. Around Africa? Asked Constantine in surprise. The ocean-going formation departed from the port of Piraeus, Greece, passed through the Strait of Gibraltar, and entered the Atlantic Ocean. According to the preliminary plan, the crew will conduct a series of exercises in the Atlantic Ocean, such as artillery drills, and ship driving under severe sea conditions. The choppy Atlantic is the best naval practice, Constantinople interjected. During the artillery exercise, We will use some uninhabited islands in the Atlantic as targets for the Greek Navy's first long-range shooting experiment. There are two 254mm cannons on the Vanning, although this caliber is far from the large caliber guns on the Trachupis. When Constantine heard the shooting experiment, he asked with great interest, "How do you conduct the long-distance shooting experiment?" Constantine was very curious about how the naval artillery of this era ensured that it hit the target at a long distance. In shooting training, the target at a specified distance is fired at a fixed elevation angle, usually 500 meters, 1,500 meters, and 2,500 meters, and the speed of 15 knots is used as the benchmark, and the elevation angle of the artillery is fine-tuned in steps of 1/16 degrees to correct shooting parameters: deep anchoring, anti-collision avoidance, loss control, lighting control, as well as the endless learning of geographic coordinates and chart positioning, course and speed measurement, navigation marks and signal flag signal light identification, meteorology and hydrology, and foreign military knowledge. These projects are all to conduct drills at sea. Henry said his plan, then, go all the way south. According to Commander Cantoretti's request, the formation will visit Matadi in Congo, and then head to Cape Town, South Africa, where the formation is repaired for a short time, and then round the Cape of Good Hope. Constantine listened to the route carefully, and thought that this way south, the training crew would suffer. The ship formation went all the way south, and on the way to the Congo, it gradually approached the equator. The temperature near the equator was terrifyingly high. John Constantine could imagine the ecstasy of sweat in the crew quarters. After the formation has loved the Cape of Good Hope, it enters the Atlantic Ocean, where the sea conditions are different from the Atlantic Ocean. In order to allow the crew to gain experience, we will train in the Indian Ocean for about a month, then cross the Mozambique Strait, continue all the way north to the Red Sea, and enter the Mediterranean Sea through the Suez Canal, return to Greece. Constantine could feel tired just listening to it. According to the route that Colonel Henry said, the distance of this ocean voyage might not be tens of thousands of kilometers. Thinking about those crew members who have to drift on the ship for nearly a year, and don't know how to endure the long journey, the Navy's wages and allowances are much higher than the Army's. Thank you, Colonel Henry, for assisting the Greek Navy in ocean-going training, Constantine said. After that, the three became quiet. www.uxiaspit.com. Seeing that Constantine and Cantorettis seemed to have something to say, Henry went to the tavern on the dock with other crew members to have fun. After all, the year-long ocean-going training is about to begin, and every second on land is now precious. Cantorettis, there is no problem with the two battle cruisers now. Then, how about the construction of your Navy's other auxiliary ships, those torpedo boats and destroyers? Constantine asked with concern. The two Invincible-class battle cruisers will be the main battleships of the Greek Navy in the future, but the fleet still needs a certain number of auxiliary ships. Moreover, with the development of torpedo technology, the lightning strike power of destroyers has become more and more attractive to the navies of various countries, and has become a threat that large warships cannot ignore due to the special attack method of torpedoes, attacking ships from underwater. Even a battleship with a famously heavy armor hits the torpedo, even if it does not sink on the spot, it will cause irreversible damage, even in the opinion of some naval officers. The reason why the navies of various countries are rushing to develop large caliber artillery, the artillery of the main naval battleships, is getting longer and farther, so that the main battleship can have the ability to launch attacks outside the range of torpedoes. Otherwise, once the main stations enter the range of torpedoes, they will always be in danger. Therefore, Constantine was also very concerned about the 10 large torpedo boats, destroyers, planned by the Greek Navy. Please remember this book's first domain name. Mobile version reading website, Chapter 196, Urgent News. 10 destroyers have already entered the construction process. Although we can refer to the destroyer development experience of the Royal Navy, but Your Highness, your requirements are very high, and the Athens shipyard lacks the construction experience of new destroyers. So far only 2 have been launched. Cantorettis heard Constantine asking about the progress of the Navy's destroyers, and did not dare to neglect, and replied immediately. Constantine sighed and encouraged. Greece is still a small European country after all, and the funds that can be used to build the Navy are relatively small. It is impossible to be like the navies of those big countries. They have huge wealth and abundant funds. In order to complete specific maritime tasks, special warships can be specially built, torpedo boats are built for lightning strikes, destroyers are built to deal with torpedo boats, and cruisers are built to deal with destroyers. Greek Navy must spend money where it matters, just like the British Navy, with sufficient funds in hand. The pompous style of building warships, dreadnoughts, battle cruisers, destroyers, frigates, and torpedo boats. Each type of ship has a clear division of labor and performs its own duties. However, the British Navy is the #1 navy in the world at this time, and it has the financial support of the world hegemon. No navy of any country can build a navy with the same wealth as the British Navy, regardless of the cost. A construction plan of the Greek Navy drafted by Constantinople, whether it is a battle cruiser or a destroyer, is all-rounder and can do any chores required. The Greek Navy does not have the financial resources to buy a full range of warships. The two Esmeralda-class cruisers, Congo and Banning, are old ships that have been in service for more than 10 years. The use of the manual, frequent maintenance, and the age of the ships are getting longer. After the two battle cruisers are in service, it is no surprise that these two ships will be allocated to the second-line troops, and the possibility of participating in frontline operations is minimal. Greek destroyers, to some extent, are responsible for the work of cruisers, so they cannot fully refer to the construction experience of British destroyers. In this case, Greek destroyers are required to have ocean-going combat capabilities to play the role of cruisers, such as ocean patrols, protection of commercial routes, and destruction of enemy commerce and trade. Constantine's requirements for Greek destroyers are a displacement of more than 1,000 tons, a speed of not less than 28 knots, equipped with artillery with a caliber of more than 100 millimeters, several torpedo tubes, and fuel-driven. Despite the help of the British Navy, due to the weak shipbuilding and design capabilities of Greece, and the high technical requirements of the Greek Navy for destroyers, the progress of Greece's self-built destroyer plan has been slow. According to the current development of the world's Navy destroyers, the displacement of destroyers in various countries is inconveniently below 1,000 tons. This does not mean that they cannot build them, but they do not have the need to crack large destroyers like Greece. The ship designers at the Athens shipyard have worked very hard, and have been working overtime after receiving the task, Constantinople said with emotion. Since the beginning of the new century, the destroyers of the navies of various countries have developed rapidly. The current destroyers are not only responsible for the task of dealing with the enemy's torpedo boats, but also responsible for carrying out torpedo attacks and weakening the enemy's forces before the decisive battle of the main fleet. Speaking of the new destroyer, Constantinople, the naval commander, was very enthusiastic. I asked the designer to refer to the Beagle-class destroyer that the United Kingdom started to build last year. The two destroyers currently launched, with a displacement of 1,200 tons, are equipped with 3 steam turbines produced by Tesla Power Group, with a horsepower of 18,000 horsepower, a speed of 27 knots, equipped with 4 105mm artillery, 3 torpedo tubes, and a range of 1,200 nautical miles. Having said this, Constantinople continued, in this case, the destroyer can completely cooperate with a battle cruiser to form a rapid response fleet. It can also carry out tasks such as mine-laying, patrolling, and guarding. It was now the end of 1910. Constantine estimated the construction time of 10 destroyers, and urged, "You must hurry up and put them into service as soon as possible. In the next war, the Navy will still undertake important tasks." While Constantine and Constantinople were chatting about the Navy, Greek Foreign Minister Venizelos hurried to the pier, looking for the Crown Prince, who came here to participate in the ceremony of the war cruise joining the Greek shipping. "What's the matter, Mr. Venizelos?" Constantine asked quickly when he saw the foreign minister, who was in a hurry. "His Royal Highness, the Greek embassy abroad has received news that Kaiser Wilhelm II sent a warship to Agadir, Morocco, and a war in Europe is imminent," Venizelos said eagerly. Hearing this, Constantine secretly said that his brother-in-law made another big news on the side. Crown Princess Sophie heard the words and was stunned. How could William do this? After the momentary gaffe, it was someone who had been in a high position for a long time, and he immediately reacted. Constantine asked, "What's going on?" Venizelos watched Constantine and the Crown Princess staring at him, took a deep breath, and said, "Due to the Moroccan issue, conflicts have arisen between Germany and France. Morocco is located in the northwest of Africa, bordering the Strait of Gibraltar to the north and the Atlantic Ocean to the west, which is of great strategic significance. France and Germany thus launched a fierce competition in Morocco. France has been operating in Morocco for nearly 100 years, and its strength is deeply rooted. Paris has a decisive influence on Morocco's domestic and foreign affairs. French immigrants and businessmen also spread all over Morocco's main cities. The powerful Britain and the other countries across the sea. Spain also has its own interests in Morocco. As a result, Morocco as a whole has become a strategic location that affects the whole body, explained Venizelos. After the last Morocco crisis, although Germany and France have reached an agreement on the Moroccan issue on the surface, they are still in a wrestling match secretly. The Germans encouraged Moroccan sultans to rebel against French control. In 1905, William II paid a state visit to Morocco, a move that really encouraged the local nobles in Morocco, who encouraged Moroccan sultans to stop owing to France. The last time Morocco the crisis, the first Moroccan crisis in 1906, the immediate trigger was that the Germans wanted to leave support in Morocco. As for this time, it was because France dispatched troops stationed in North Africa into northern Morocco to help quell the armed rebellion. Venizelos shrugged and added, according to the French, "It is so, William II was furious when he heard the news and ordered the Foreign Office to inform the French to get out, otherwise Germany has the right to take all necessary actions." After that, the gunboat Leopard was sent into Morocco. Sophie asked inexplicably, "What about the attitude of the British? Is it still partial to the French?" As the princess of the German royal family www.wuxiaspit.com Sophie asked subconsciously. Venizelos said, "Of course, in recent years, the contradiction between Britain and Germany has become more and more fierce, especially the naval competition between the two countries. The High Seas Fleet and the Oceanic Fleet have invested heavily to build new warships. Moreover, Germany's idea of acquiring a port in Morocco will definitely make the British vigilant. Once Germany has a naval port in Morocco, the threat to British overseas trade routes is too great. Therefore, the British attitude is very fierce." After a pause, Venizelos said with a serious face, "British Foreign Minister Gray met with the German ambassador to the UK this morning. According to the information our diplomats have inquired about, Gray warned that if Kaiser Wilhelm really told the Germans sending troops into Morocco, as the newspapers say, is like going to war against Britain and France at the same time, the seriousness of the situation exceeded everyone's expectations." After Venizelos explained the details of the situation, everyone fell silent. No wonder everyone is so concerned about the diplomatic turmoil between Britain, France and Germany. It is really a war between major European powers, and the impact is too great. Once a war breaks out in Europe, it will have a direct impact on Greece. For example, Greece imports nearly 1 million tons of coal from the United Kingdom every year. Once the United Kingdom participates in the war, Greece's coal imports will be affected immediately, and the Greek steel industry will suffer from coal shortages. In trouble? Please remember this book's first domain name. Mobile version reading website. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 197. One Wave Again. Once the steel industry, the basic industry, has to stop production due to lack of raw materials, it will be like a domino, and a series of chain effects will occur in the Greek economy in this way. The second Morocco crisis caused the situation in the whole of Europe to be extremely tense. The changes in the situation in Europe led to the breaking of the principle of balance of power established after the Napoleonic Wars in 1815, and replaced by the Allied powers composed of France and Russia, and the allies of the German-Austrian-Italian alliance for a period of time after that. Constantine has been paying attention to the direction of this crisis. On June 11, 1911. Constantine received a notice from the Palace of the Constitution Square to participate in the Council of State. Entering the conference room, Constantine saw all the senior military and political leaders in Greece with solemn expressions and unsmiling expressions. King George, who presided over the meeting in person, looked around the crowd and saw that everyone had arrived, and said solemnly, "According to the reaction of the Greek ambassador to Rome, Italy seems to have recently seized the only remaining territories of the Ottomans in Africa, Tripoli and Cyrenaica. Signs of use of force. It is observed that the Italian navy and army have begun to assemble in southern Italy, and the signs are already obvious." King George's words were like sparks igniting dynamite, and the whole conference room became noisy. This explosive news shocked everyone. The Moroccan crisis, the negotiation between Germany and France, and the turmoil in Europe caused by the tension between the two countries, the effect has already appeared. Is There's going to be a war. There is going to be another war in Europe. In fact, it is no wonder that everyone will be so surprised, because once a war between Italy and the Ottomans really breaks out, it will be the first war between major European powers since the Russo-Turkish War in 1878. Since 1878, the great powers of Europe have maintained a state of peace. Italy obtained permission from Britain and France. Prime Minister Alexandros asked in disbelief. Italy is the weakest of the great powers. Except for people, it lacks every industrial resource. Without permission from Britain and France, it has neither the courage nor the material foundation to use force against the Ottoman Empire without authorization. Although I don't know the specific details, it is obvious that this is the result of the instigation of Britain and France. Of course, Italy itself has the intention of expanding, Constantine said. Seeing that everyone looked at themselves suspiciously, he explained, Britain and France have obviously been united and have reached an agreement on dealing with Germany. This is already obvious in the crisis caused by Morocco. Italy is an ally of Germany, the two countries have signed a treaty, and the Ottoman Empire is a quasi-ally of the Germans. Over the years, Germany and the Ottomans have had close relations, and the two sides have close economic and trade exchanges. Germany helped the Ottoman Empire to build railways and assist Sudan. Forming a new army, it is clear that the Germans intend to win over the Ottoman Empire as an ally. So, at this time, should Germany be embarrassed, the tension between the quasi-ally and the ally, then, who will Germany support? Thinking of William's predicament now, Constantine felt a little sympathetic to him. The diplomatic pressure exerted by Britain and France is very heavy. Yes, as the leader of the Allied countries, Germany is in a dilemma at this time. Venizelos agreed Germany is the mainstay of the Allied powers. Wouldn't it be a shame if you couldn't manage your own little brother? Once Italy uses force against the Ottoman Empire, no matter what the outcome of the war is, Germany's international prestige will suffer. This is actually far more than a matter of face, but a real impact on the positions of various countries. Convince Italy not to attack the Ottomans. This is almost impossible. The original purpose of Italy joining the German-led Allies was for colonial expansion. In 1881, Italy was frustrated in the competition with France for Tunisia. France directly sent troops to occupy Tunisia. Compared with France, Italy, which was weaker than France, had no one to help and support in the world. To avoid future colonial expansion, Italy was alone and joined the Allies. However, in the subsequent Italian-Ethiopian War, as an ally, Germany did not give support to Italy. Italy was defeated by Ethiopia's black uncle, so she was naturally dissatisfied with her ally, Germany. This time, Britain and France instigated Italy to attack the North African territory of the Ottoman Empire, Libya, later called Libya, now Tripoli and Cyrenaica, a temptation that Italy could not refuse. As for Germany's persuasion to Italy not to use force against Libya, Italy would definitely scoff at such a statement. I recognize you as a big brother for colonial expansion, and now you are preventing me from expanding, so what do I want your big brother to do? The reason why the Ottoman Empire approached Germany was to introduce new powers, balance the influence of Britain and France in the Ottomans, and use barbarians to control barbarians to ensure their own security. After the rise of Germany, the relationship between the two countries continued to draw closer, especially after the Turkish Al-Shabaab revolution. Germany's influence in the Ottoman Empire could not be increased once Germany was unable to provide much-needed help to the beleaguered Ottoman Empire. There was a re-examination of German capabilities within the Ottoman Empire. Therefore, this move of Britain and France, inciting Italy to attack Libya, alienated the relationship between Germany and its allies, and hit Germany's dead and Venizelos side. This blow just hit the Germans' soft underbelly. King George frowned and said, then, once Italy and the Ottoman Empire really go to war, the Ottoman Empire will not have any foreign aid. Constantine shook his head firmly in response to the king. www.wuxiaspit.com. Seeing this scene, the naval commander Cantaratus said worriedly, without foreign aid, the Ottoman Empire can never be Italian opponent in this way. Tripoli and Cyrenaica will fall into the hands of the Italians in the future. Although it is a barren desert, its strategic location is very important. It is separated from Sicily and southern Italy by the Tunis Strait, and the Italian navy can easily cut off the Mediterranean route. There was a sigh in the conference room. On the route from Congo to Greece, the Tunis Strait is a must. Not only that, once Italy gets Tripoli and Cyrenaica, the territory of Italy will be half encircled by Greece. Constantine stood up and pointed to the map of Europe hanging on the wall behind King George. Cyrenaica is located in the south of the Greek peninsula, only 100 kilometers away from Crete, coupled with the Italian boot-shaped native land. In the west of Greece, Italy encircled the Greek territory from the west and the south. Cantorides, the commander of the Greek navy, feels extremely heavy. In this way, the Greek navy will be under enormous pressure from the Italian navy. Please remember this book's first domain name. Mobile version reading website, Chapter 198, Italian-Turkish War. Looking at the sad-faced Cantorides, Constantine didn't know how to comfort him. Although the Italian army was not worth mentioning, the Italian navy was indeed a real power level. No longer an order of magnitude, since the war between Italy and Ottoman Turkey is imminent. Greece should be ready to deal with it. Prime Minister Alexandros, the government departments will inform the people of this news, and, in order to ensure the food security of Greece, the newly established Grain Reserve Department must ensure that enough grain is stored, and the Italian military action will definitely affect the shipping in the eastern Mediterranean. Constantine reminded Alexandros wrote after the meeting. Everyone left the conference room one after another, except for Constantine, King George, and Prime Minister Alexandros, who stayed in place. Seeing that the meeting room was quiet again, Alexandros calmed down his turbulent mood and said to King George, "Your Majesty, it has been more than 10 years since I took up the post of Prime Minister in 1897. Thanks to His Majesty's grace, as well as the unremitting efforts of the people, Greece's economic development has been stable in recent years." Speaking of this, Prime Minister Alexandros' voice was a little hoarse and choked. "In recent years, when dealing with official business, I often feel low energy, probably because of my advanced age." Hearing the old Prime Minister say this, Constantine couldn't help but look carefully, and saw that the Prime Minister was indeed old-fashioned. His hair was gray, his face was full of wrinkles, and his back was a little hunched. Constantine thought, this Prime Minister is 72 years old. The recent development of the situation in Europe has made me, a person who is not familiar with diplomatic work, feel very tired. If nothing else happens, Europe will go through a period of turmoil. I have neither the energy nor the ability to continue to lead Greece to deal with this situation. There's a storm. After saying this, Alexandros was relieved and was able to free himself from burdening the government affairs of a country. What Greece needs is a new prime minister who can handle the chaos. Alexandros has been in power for more than 10 years. Whether it is from the political and economic considerations of Greece or from the international situation, Greece should indeed have a new prime minister. Prime Minister Alexandros has outstanding political achievements. During his tenure in office, Greece's domestic economy has developed rapidly and its politics has been stable. The Greek people know about your contribution, Prime Minister, King George praised, but he did not pretend to shirk his retention. Different from other periods, probably due to the smooth economic development of Greece, Prime Minister Alexandros, who successfully implemented reforms, has been firmly on the throne of Prime Minister for more than 10 years, effectively ensuring the long-term continuation of Greek policies. Prior to this, the political arena in Greece has always been known for frequent changes of prime ministers. The term of office is only 1 or 2 years long, and the short term may be only a few dozen days. Prime Minister Alexandros, who do you think should take over the position of Prime Minister? Constantine asked. Although Constantine himself was more optimistic about Venizelos, Constantine's confidence in Venizelos was more derived from the deeds of this person in the original history. Although during the contact and inspection, this person was undiplomatic and he was indeed brilliant politically, but Constantine didn't dare to make any promises about his suitability to lead Greece in a time of great turmoil in Europe. Venizelos is suitable, Alexandros said without hesitation. King George said calmly, "Can you tell me why?" Firstly, Venizelos is very prestigious in the Liberal Party of the Parliament. If he is the new prime minister, the Greek parliamentarians will not object. Secondly, Venizelos is good at diplomatic work and has a keen eye on the international situation. Over the next period of time, Greece really needs someone who is proficient in diplomacy to help Greece integrate itself among European countries for maximum benefit. Greece has never needed a diplomat prime minister like it does now, Alexandros said without hesitation. Although he doesn't say it, in fact, Alexandros is very proud of his ability to serve as prime minister for more than 10 years, implement economic and political reforms, and allow Greece to develop steadily and rapidly for a long time. During his tenure in office, Alexandros basically paid off the huge foreign debt left by his predecessor, Terry Kupis, who invested heavily in infrastructure construction. Alexandros naturally prefers to see Greece, which has gathered his efforts for more than 10 years, in the hands of a capable helmsman, although according to the current rules of the game in Greek politics, the Prime Minister of Greece is elected by the Parliament. The influence of the royal family on the candidate of the Prime Minister is unquestionable. Even if the influence of the royal family in the Parliament is not mentioned, according to the Constitution, the king himself has the right to forcibly appoint the Prime Minister. In addition, Crown Prince Constantine led the Greek army to defeat the Ottomans in the last war. The royal family's prestige in Greece is unprecedented. Both the Parliament and the people respect the royal family very much. Seeing Alexandros lonely back and disappearing at the door, King George faced Constantine and sighed, "The storm is coming. Greece needs a strong prime minister at this time." Since Alexandros also recommended Pu. Zealous, "I think he will be the next prime minister." On June 28, 1911, after the election of the Greek Parliament, the former Greek foreign minister and liberal Venizelos was elected as the new prime minister of Greece. The Italian government is facing an unprecedented opportunity. The major European powers are caught in sharp contradictions, and the crisis between Britain, France and Germany caused by the Moroccan issue is fierce. www.uxiaspit.com. It feels impatient since Italy was unified in 1861. After decades of development, there is a strong desire for colonial expansion, especially for North Africa, which is across the Mediterranean Sea, in order to prepare for the annexation of Tripolitania and Cyrenaica. From 1880 to 1911, Italy continued to immigrate and dispatch merchants to the two places, to purchase land, and to actively expand its power. They sent naval officers to change into fishermen's clothes to conduct coastal surveys in the name of catching sponges off the coast of Tripolitania. They instructed Italian Catholic priests to go deep into the interior to collect intelligence in the name of missionary missions, learning from its failure in Ethiopia in 1896. Italy is constantly watching for timing. When the second Moroccan crisis occurred, Italy believed that if it did not act, it would lose the opportunity, so it used the pretext of the unfair treatment of Italians in Tripolitania and Cyrenaica to preempt and rush to send troops to North Africa in Turkey. Before the occupation of Libya on September 28, 1911, the Greek ambassador to Rome informed Athens that Italy had issued an ultimatum to the Ottoman Empire, asking the Ottoman Empire to recognize Libya as an Italian territory. Since then, European countries have not focused on the Moroccan crisis, but instead have been attracted by the territorial conflict between Italy and the Ottoman Empire. Please remember this book's first domain name. Mobile version reading website, Chapter 199, Meeting Discussion. The confrontation between the two major European blocs soon spread to other countries. The Ministry of Defense building in Athens, December 4, 1911. Constantine personally presided over the discussion on the war between Italy and the Ottoman Empire. Italy and the Ottoman Empire, two countries, one east and one west, are the most important neighbors of Greece in the east and west. These two countries are in Libya, and the ongoing war. For Greece, such a live demonstration is the best opportunity to observe and assess the military strength of the two countries, and there is no better time. A total of 70 or 80 people, including officers above the brigadier general level of the Greek army, commanders above the destroyer captain level in the navy, and some government personnel, participated in this meeting. Constantine got up, saw the darkened conference room, and nodded to Cantorides, who was sitting next to him. Cantorides, who knew it, stood up and came to the huge map of the war situation in North Africa hanging. Seeing dozens of faces in the audience focusing on him, Cantorides said, "It has been 3 months since the two countries declared war in September. The war between Italy and the Ottomans in Libya has been going on, because the naval strength of the Ottoman Empire is too far from that of Italy. The Ottoman navy has been shrinking in the Dardanelles, and has no courage to fight against the Italian navy." The audience listening to the lecture burst into laughter, especially the Greek naval officer among them. Turks are not born for the sea. While laughing at the cowardice of the Ottoman Empire's navy, he also did not forget to ridicule its competitors. Cities in Libya are mainly distributed along the coast, and the interior areas are almost deserts. Oases suitable for human survival are scattered in the desert. This is good news for the Italians. With the help of the Italian navy, the Italian army can easily land and occupy important coastal cities. According to this situation, will this war end soon? After all, Libya's big cities are on the coast, and apart from some oases in the interior, there are no important strategic locations. It seems that Italy has already captured Tobruk. An army officer sitting in the audience said. Constantinople on the stage shook his head. It's not true. In fact, the Italians are now riding a tiger, although not diplomatically supported by the major European powers. All countries persuaded the Ottoman Empire to accept Italy's demands. Ottoman still decided to defend his North African territories. Although Egypt, under the control of the British, rejected the request of the Ottoman reinforcements, the Ottomans still supported the Ottoman garrison in Libya through some channels, and also organized local Bedouin and Alabo. Sensitive words. No way, people resist, Constantinople explained, waving his baton over the map. In fact, although Libya nominally belongs to the Ottoman Empire, the Ottoman Empire does not actually control it. There are about 400,000 to 500,000 people in Libya, all of whom are nomadic tribes with sturdy characters and untamed wildness. As nomadic tribes, they are not lacking courage to fight. Although Libya looks very large, it looks like more than 1 million square kilometers, most of which are uninhabited deserts, and there is no oil or water. Those nomadic tribes are free, but nominally subordinate to the Ottoman Empire. After the outbreak of the war, the morale of the local people against the Italian invaders was high. Although the British authorities were vaguely inclined towards Italy, the Egyptians did their best to support the Libyans after learning of the Italian invasion, although in the coastal areas they may not be an opponent of the Italian army. In the interior, these ALB cavalry are very mobile, although in positional warfare they cannot be an opponent of the superior Italians. According to the information that our merchant group has obtained in North Africa, there is already an Italian army of 3,000 people. Due to improper defense, it was surrounded by an Arab cavalry of 20,000 people. In cooperation with a local Ottoman army of 8,000, it was almost completely wiped out. Before the outbreak of the war, there were many Greek businessmen in Libya doing business there. As one of the results of Greece's defeat of the Ottomans in 1897, Libya, which nominally belonged to the Ottoman Empire, also opened its doors to Greek goods. After the outbreak of the Libyan War, there were still many Greek businessmen stranded there, and Greek spies gained a lot of war intelligence there, although Italy described this defeat as a simple resistance at home. After this fiasco, Italy's military strength in Libya has reached 100,000. Constantine, who was sitting in the front row, secretly laughed at the poor performance of the Italians. There would be no problem with the Italians' offensive on the coast. The problem is that the vast inland of Libya is full of unobstructed large in the desert. Those Alabo cavalry have obvious advantages in mobility, and their camel cavalry is really suitable for fighting in the Libyan desert. Not surprisingly, as long as the Ottoman commanders sent to Libya do not make mistakes and adopt a guerrilla warfare situation, as the Boers in South Africa did against the British Army, and give full play to the advantages of flexibility, this war will become a war of attrition, and it will continue to be a war of attrition stalemate. After all, the Italians can't destroy their enemies, so what if they occupied the coastal cities? The nomads can still persist by relying on the oasis in the desert. Then the Italians can't end the war. The war has dragged on for a long time. You reading www.uucantshoe.com. Those landed in Libya and the warships that continue to fight will continue to consume the funds of the Italian government. The Italians originally estimated that the war could be ended in a short time, but the resolute resistance of the locals exceeded their expectations. Italy originally expected to consume 300,000 lire per month. As a result, the monthly consumption has reached 800,000 lire, and it seems that it will continue to grow. After explaining the general situation of the war, Constantinople stepped down. Constantine stood up and said aloud to the officers behind him, "Now everyone can speak freely, and each of you will distribute a copy of the specific information of the war. This is the latest direct confrontation between the armies of major European countries. Everyone can speak freely." The reality in the conference room was quiet for a moment, and the Minister of Armament Yearns, who was most next to Constantine, said, "As a participant in the armament work, I read that in the Libyan battlefield, a new type of military equipment appeared in the Italian army: weapons, aircraft and armored vehicles. It doesn't seem to have played a big role in the war," said Emmanuel, chief of the general staff. Although aircraft and armored units will be powerful weapons for the army in the future, Constantine did not agree with Yearns, because the current aircraft and armored vehicles are too primitive, and in the upcoming Balkan situation, there will be no too much effect. Please remember this book's first domain name. Mobile version reading website, Chapter 200, Unexpected Results. Seeing a group of senior Greek army officers in the conference room, holding the materials in their hands, discussing the war in North Africa with each other, Constantine, Venizelos, and Emma Inner came to the conference room. In a quiet room on the side, the three sat around the table on the sofa, and Constantine said directly, "Prime Minister Venizelos, please tell us about your visit to Serbia and Bulgaria this time. What do the two countries think about the alliance?" After the Russo-Turkish War in 1878, the five major powers in Europe, Britain, France, Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Russia, signed the Berlin Treaty in 1881. Before the major powers agreed, no country could unilaterally change the territorial status of Europe. Combined with the situation at the time, the Ottomans were newly defeated by Russia and its allies. This treaty is obviously to protect the Ottoman Empire and prevent the impoverished and weak Ottoman Empire from being swallowed up alive by the Russians with endless ambitions for territorial expansion. This year, 1911, after the war between Italy and the Ottoman Empire in North Africa, the Balkans were filled with restlessness and unease. Britain and France, which used to be the platform of the Ottoman Empire, actually allowed Italy to attack the territory of the Ottoman Empire in North Africa this time, which clearly conveyed that a signal: Britain and France are no longer willing to stand for the Ottoman Empire and maintain the territorial integrity of the Ottoman Empire. Of course, this information makes the Balkan countries think about it. Italy can attack the territory of the Ottoman Empire. Why can't the Balkan countries? You must know that the European territories still retained by the Ottoman Empire, Macedonia and Thrace, have historically been inextricably linked with Greece, Bulgaria, and Serbia. Therefore, after the Ottoman Empire mobilized its troops to support the Ottoman army in Libya, the political atmosphere in the Balkans was mysterious, and the Serbian and Bulgarian troops moved frequently and were mobilized many times. Everyone, including Greece, had ideas about the territory of the Ottoman Empire. Especially at this time when the Ottoman Empire was in a stalemate in the war with Italy and North Africa and could not take care of itself. The three countries are all claiming to be the legitimate heirs of the territory of the Ottoman Empire. Therefore, the newly appointed Prime Minister and Minister of Foreign Affairs of Greece took a destroyer to the two countries to visit the high-level governments of Bulgaria and Serbia to test their tone and inquire about their relationship with the formation of the Balkan Tri-Nation Alliance, to fight the Ottoman Empire. Together with a tired face, Venizelos had just returned from Varna, a port city on the Black Sea in Bulgaria, this morning. After receiving an invitation from Constantine, he hurried to the defense building without taking a rest. To Constantine's expectations, Venizelos shook his head. The high-level views of the governments of the two countries are surprisingly consistent, and both have indicated that they have no intention of forming an alliance with Greece at the moment. Venizelos said with a strange face, "But I heard that Belgrade and Sofia have been in frequent exchanges recently. The ambassadors of the two countries have been summoned many times by their countries. It is impossible to form an unintentional alliance." Emma Yinner said, puzzled. The three countries knew each other's feelings towards the Ottoman European territories, and it would be a lie to say that they had no intentions. Venizelos frowned and pondered for a moment. "Although there is no definite evidence, I can speculate that Bulgaria and Serbia have reached an agreement on certain points," Constantine said in surprise. "Is it difficult for these two countries to exclude Greece? They have reached an agreement in private, despite the independence of Bulgaria and Serbia, free from the rotten and rigid rule of the Ottoman Empire. The economy has grown rapidly in these years. However, in the last 10 years, the Ottoman Empire has also changed, especially as it has gotten closer and closer to the Germans. After the Turkish Shabab Revolution, they fought hotly with the Germans and bought a lot of German-made arms. Especially after the defeat in Greece in 1897, the top officials of the Ottoman government had to deal with pain and painstakingly and devoted themselves to learning from the military advisors sent by Germany, which lasted for more than 10 years and achieved fruitful results. According to estimates by the Greek military, the entire Ottoman Empire could mobilize nearly 700,000 troops under extreme conditions. Its strength should not be underestimated. After all, it is an old-fashioned empire faced with this number of troops. None of the three Balkan countries is an opponent. Therefore, for the three Balkan countries, alliance is the best choice. It just didn't occur to me that Bulgaria and Serbia were not enthusiastic about forming an alliance with Greece. I'm afraid that's the case," Venizelos said with a wry smile. Emma Yinner was still puzzled. "Why don't you want to form an alliance with Greece?" As Greece with the strongest comprehensive strength among the three countries form an alliance to fight against the Ottoman Empire, and the possibility of winning is very high. Constantine stood up and paced back and forth, saying in his heart that he was a little irritable. "It is precisely because Greece is the strongest that it is unwilling to form an alliance with us." In 1911, among the three Balkan countries, Greece was the strongest, followed by Bulgaria, and Serbia was the weakest after more than 10 years of development. Greece is now a semi-industrialized country. Cotton textile products are the industrial products with the highest export value in Greece, as well as medicines and food. Greece exports 500 million drachmas of industrial products every year, relying on the Congo colony. The eastern Mediterranean region is also the sales ground for Greek cash crops, such as sucrose, coffee, cocoa, timber, rice, etc. It is only limited by the lack of resources, as well as the small domestic market and sparse population, and the machinery required for industrial production needs to be imported from abroad. At present, the population of Greece has reached 4.35 million, the highest among the three countries. Compared with Greece, Bulgaria, which is slightly weaker, is still an agricultural country in general. Although its economy has developed rapidly after reunification in 1885, moreover, Bulgaria's sea outlet is on the coast of the Black Sea. www.wuxiaspit.com, which has led to the trade exchange between Bulgaria and the world, which is restricted by the Dardanelles. And the value is greatly reduced. As for population, Bulgaria currently has a total population of 3.8 million. Serbia, the weakest of the three countries, is currently a purely agricultural country and a landlocked country. The territory is also the smallest among the three kingdoms, only about 50,000 square kilometers, and has a population of 2.8 million. Serbia is bordered by Bulgaria to the east, Ottoman Macedonia to the south, and Austro-Hungarian Empire to the north. Serbia is surrounded by three countries. Since there is no sea outlet, there is basically no foreign trade. After independence, the economy developed slowly. Originally, Constantine believed that the two countries would definitely hit it off after learning of the visit of the Greek Prime Minister, and formed an alliance with Greece. As a result, the two countries did not bring Greece to play. After thinking about it for a while, Constantine can roughly understand why the leaders of the two countries have such a reaction. It is precisely because Greece is the strongest among the three countries and the three countries form an alliance. There is no doubt that Greece will be the backbone of the League, while Serbia and Bulgaria are at risk of being marginalized once the alliance does take a large swath of territory from the Ottoman Empire. Greece will surely have the fattest piece. Telling these analyses to the two, Emma Inner and Venizelos looked at each other. Please remember this book's first domain name. Mobile version reading website, end of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.